Chapter 951. Min Yu's face turned green when he saw this. He wanted to laugh but did not dare to. Wuxia was furious. He did not even need to think to know who did this. He stopped at the door and looked around. Soon, he saw the deep claw marks on the leather sofa. Little Zhizha's claws were not flat. They were very sharp and had scratched several places. Wuxia's face turned even darker. However, when he saw the bite marks on the corner of the desk, his face turned gloomy. Min Yu was observing from the side. He was so scared that he did not even dare to breathe. Wuxia suddenly turned his head slowly and looked at him coldly. He said in an unfriendly tone, "I remember that I told you not to let that stupid dog out." Min Yu lowered his head and said guiltily, "Yes." "Then what's going on?" Wuxia looked at the indescribable marks on his feet. His eyes were sharp and scary. "Give me an explanation." "President, this, stepping on a dick meant that it was lucky." However, he did not dare to say this out loud. But there was no other way. Humans had 3 natural urges, and so did dogs. It was so small. How could it hold it in? He immediately ordered the cleaning auntie to come over and clean it up. Then, he quickly replaced the desk that was bitten by Little Zhizha. Even the damaged sofa was replaced. Then, his assistant hurriedly bought a new pair of leather shoes. As for the shoes that had stepped on a dick, they naturally had to be thrown away. Damn stupid dog. Wuxia stood in the office and looked around. However, he could not find any trace of that stupid dog. "Where's the dog?" he asked. Min Yu immediately searched everywhere. Finally, he found Little Zhizha, who was trembling uneasily in the corner. He brought the puppy in front of Wuxia. Wuxia stared at it coldly. He wanted to flare up a few times, but he held it back. The puppy was so small that he even suspected that it would be on the verge of death if he slapped it. Suppressing his anger, he threw it into a corner and punished it. How could Little Zhizha stand still? It blinked its eyes innocently. When Wuxia glared at it, it shuddered violently and cried out in fear. "Don't shout!" Wuxia bellowed. Little Zhizha was so scared that he kept quiet. His whole body trembled as he looked at it. His eyes were watery and he looked so innocent. "Can I shit in the office?" he questioned. Little Zhizha tilted his head, as if he did not understand his words. "Answer." Under Wuxia's cold gaze, the little puppy was so scared that it let out an "woo" sound, and its gaze became timid. "Face the wall and reflect on your mistakes." He held it and turned it around so that it faced the wall. Little Zhizha timidly turned around and stared at him innocently, as if silently accusing him of being rude. For a moment, he actually saw the shadow of Unspoken in its bewildered eyes. Many times, she had also stared at him with such eyes. He actually felt a little sorry for it. "I'll let you off this time. If there's a next time," his voice came to an abrupt end. His gaze was terrifying and cold. Little Zhizha was almost paralyzed by his gaze. With a muffled groan, he stood up and threw it back into the kennel. Then, he returned to his desk to deal with his own matters. However, not long after, he felt that something was rubbing against his trousers. Chapter 952. He kicked it to the side impatiently. Even though he didn't use much strength, it still lost its balance and fell backwards, tumbling heavily. Little Zhizha seemed unwilling to give up. It ran to his side and continued to pull at his trousers with its paws. Wuxia kicked it to the side again. "Go back to your nest." After being ignored, Little Zhizha began to howl. Each howl was louder than the previous one, and in the end, it actually howled at the top of its lungs. A woo-woo, its howl sounded miserable, as if it was sad that he had ignored it. Wuxia finally lost his patience. He lifted it up and placed it on his lap. Thus, it stopped barking and found a place to curl up in the corner of his arms. Slowly, it subconsciously burrowed into his suit jacket. The office was air-conditioned. It obviously felt cold. Muyaja's face was so dark that it was unreasonable. What was wrong with him? Why did he promise that stupid woman to bring this stupid dog to work? He couldn't concentrate on his work for the whole day because this stupid dog always seemed to have a way to make him angry. Hence, when Min Yu pushed the door open and entered, he was surprised to see Muyaja sitting in front of his desk with a dark face. Boss, Muyaja was obviously in an extremely gloomy mood. Min Yu walked over at once, only to see the ignorant puppy in Muyaja's arms, sleeping soundly with its 4 paws in the air. Oh God, did this dog want to go to heaven? One must know that Muyaja's obsession with cleanliness was known to all. How could he allow a dog to run wild on him? Not only did it fall asleep, but it also seemed to be in a dream. Its 4 claws twitched all of a sudden as it kicked and stained Muyaja's white and clean shirt with dust. Min Yu was stunned. Boss, don't you hate dogs the most? If you know, then why don't you take this stupid dog away? Muyaja glared at him. Min Yu immediately picked up the dog. Change out of this suit for me. Min Yu immediately ordered his men to buy him a new suit to change into. Your job this afternoon is to take good care of this dog. After Muyaja gave the order, he left the room. There was an important meeting in the afternoon. Min Yu carried the puppy with a smile on his face. On this day, Unspoken received a call from Jianghu. Over the phone, Jianghu stammered as if she wanted to say something but didn't dare to. Unspoken laughed and said, Jianghu, do you have something to say to me? Jianghu hummed softly, but did not say it immediately. Instead, she mulled over it a few times in her heart. Speaking of which, it was quite ironic. Before the class reunion, when her classmates did not know about Unspoken's situation, they all looked down on Unspoken. In fact, they even looked down on her. In university, Huang Lily fanned the flames and created rumors that Unspoken was a mistress of a rich man outside of school. She said that she was a secret lover that could not be seen in public. Compared to these, there were even more unbearable words. Huang Lily even created rumors that Unspoken was a public transport that could be slept with as long as one paid money. She said that 30,000 yuan was enough to keep her for a month. She even warned the boys in school not to be fooled by Unspoken's appearance. She said that she looked pure and innocent, but what was the truth? She was very cheap. Chapter 953. Unspoken did not know about it, but Jianghu did. During the period when Unspoken was suspended from school, the rumors about her in school were extremely unbearable. Later on, due to an accident, Unspoken gave birth to a child out of wedlock. However, it indirectly verified the rumors that Huang Lily had spread. Huang Lily also secretly said that Unspoken's child was an illegitimate child, a bastard. So what if it was a son? A bastard child who could not see the light of day would not be acknowledged by wealthy families. Furthermore, no one was willing to be friends with Unspoken. Those boys who had pursued Unspoken in the past all felt that such a girl was filthy. Some even felt ashamed of having liked Unspoken. At first, Jianghu also believed that Unspoken was really a mistress of a rich man. However, unlike others, she was always polite to Unspoken. That was because she felt that Unspoken was quite pitiful. With such a pitiful heart, Jianghu often helped her. Since things had turned out this way, Unspoken would probably not be able to get married in the future, right? Which man would be willing to marry an 18-year-old girl who gave birth to a child out of wedlock? Many of the female classmates in the class were quite gloating. They all felt that Unspoken was actually quite pitiful. Raising a child alone, she must have been very down and out. Hence, many of the female classmates were smug and even compared themselves to Unspoken. Seeing how the once famous school belle was now in such a sorry state, they could not help but feel an inexplicable sense of superiority. However, that class reunion overturned everyone's understanding. Yunshishi actually had a boyfriend? And he was the CEO of Disheng Financial Group? Gosh, that was the Mu Group that could cause the stock market to tremble with a yawn. Naturally, they did not believe it and were skeptical. However, when Wang Chuanda appeared and treated Mu Yaja so respectfully, how could it be fake? After the class reunion, the Du family quickly suffered. She heard that because Du Jiayan and Huang Lili had offended Yunshishi and said those unbearable things at the class reunion, the Muse had suppressed the Du family so badly that they were on the brink of bankruptcy in just a few days. Only then did these people truly believe it. At the same time, they were envious, jealous, and in awe of Yunshishi. Later, after Du Jiayan begged Yunshishi, the next day, the Du family's projects slowly recovered. He was surprised and overjoyed, feeling extremely grateful to Yunshishi. She really took the words he begged her to heart. However, Huang Lili's family underwent a drastic change. Huang Lili was originally from a poor family. Her hometown was a village in the city of Beijing. Father Huang used to be in the limelight. However, the Asian financial crisis happened. His business was destroyed and his factory closed down. In the end, he was heavily in debt and had no choice but to return to his hometown. Later, Huang Lili hooked up with Du Jiayan. Under the Du family's arrangement, Father Huang became the village secretary. Although it was not as glorious as before, it was still smooth sailing for him. However, recently, Father Huang was anonymously reported for abusing his position and embezzling more than 1 million yuan. Not only that, Father Huang even embezzled the government's poverty support fund. The total embezzlement amounted to several million yuan. The village and the city was a poverty-stricken county that was heavily supported by the capital. The annual support fund amounted to several million yuan. Father Huang's case was especially serious. According to the law, not only would all his assets be confiscated, he would also face a life sentence. Life sentence? Chapter 954. She did not even need to think to know who was behind this. Why did the incident suddenly come to light? Huang Lili didn't need to guess who the anonymous informant was. She already knew who it was. This time, she was thoroughly frightened. She rushed home in the middle of the night, but her father had already been taken away by the Disciplinary and Inspection Commission for investigation. Mother Huang's hair turned white overnight, and she fainted from crying several times. She suffered a stroke and was sent to the hospital. She was still in a coma and was still under observation. All of her family's assets were frozen. Huang Lili had no choice but to use the little savings she had to pay for her mother's medical expenses. Now, she was penniless. This was what it meant to be at the end of one's rope. Mother Huang still needed follow-up treatment, and the cost was high. If she was not treated in time, she would be in danger of becoming a vegetable. Huang Lili was so frightened that she did not know what to do. She called Du Jiayan for help, but he coldly rejected her. Huang Lili, you still have the cheek to call me? We've already broken up, don't call me again to bother me. Because of you, the Du family suffered so much. Isn't that enough? Huang Lili begged softly, Jiayan, on account of our friendship, can you help me this time? You still have the cheek to talk about friendship with me? Her words made Du Jiayan furious. Because of you, the Du family almost went bankrupt. What about you? What did you do? Huang Lili. You're the one who broke up with me. Since you can't bear the hardships with me, why should I help you now that you're in trouble? You reap what you sow. If it weren't for your vanity and offending someone you shouldn't have, would you end up like this? The Du family has yet to recover and can't even protect itself. You should take care of yourself. With that, he hung up the phone. When Huang Lili tried calling him again, she was told that she could not get through. She had probably been blacklisted by him. The next day, the hospital sent another reminder. The money she had saved in the hospital was not enough to cover the medical expenses, and she had already owed several bills. At her wits' end, she naturally did not dare to look for Xianxia personally. Thus, she sought out Jianghu, hoping that the latter could plead for mercy from Xianxia on her behalf on account of the fact that they were once classmates. She hoped that the latter would be merciful and not force the Huang family into a corner. Jianghu rejected her at first. However, Huang Lili was exhausted from crying. She even said that if this went on, she would be too ashamed to continue living if her father and her mother's. Jianghu's heart softened, and she agreed. However, after dialing Xiaxia's number, she to speak. Xiaxia, have you heard about what happened to Huang Lili? What's the matter? I heard that Huang Lili's father was reported anonymously. It was said that he was corrupt and took bribes. The amount of money he received was several million. He has been taken away for investigation. If he is convicted, I'm afraid he will be sentenced to life imprisonment. Xiaxia muttered to herself for a moment. Jianghu continued. Her mother couldn't take the blow and suffered a stroke. She's still in the hospital now, but the family's funds have been frozen, so they can't pay for the medical expenses. If she's not treated in time, she'll become a vegetable. How tragic. Xiaxia laughed softly. Jianghu, what do you mean by telling me this? Chapter 955. Xiaxia said casually, do you also think that I'm selfless enough to forgive someone who used unscrupulous means to slander me? Jianghu said anxiously, Xiaxia, don't misunderstand. That's not what I meant. I just feel that Huang Lili is pitiful. Although she's in the wrong, isn't this punishment a little too severe? Punishment? Pitiful? Xiaxia was so angry that she laughed. Jianghu, are you muddle-headed? If her father wasn't corrupt, why would he be reported anonymously? Jianghu was speechless. Xiaxia laughed again and said, if her father was just and honest, why would he be afraid that others would take advantage of him? If her father hadn't brought this upon himself, her mother wouldn't have suffered such a blow and all these things wouldn't have happened. These are all their own sins. Don't tell me you're suspecting that I sent someone to report them anonymously and made up those baseless accusations to pin the blame on them? Jianghu was also a little angry, but she didn't dare to say anything. She only said, Xiaxia, I'm just feeling sorry for Huang Lili. Don't be so harsh with your words. Don't hurt our friendship over such a small matter. Moreover, I didn't mean it that way. Don't overthink it. Jianghu, people have to learn to put themselves in other people's shoes. If you have empathy and put yourself in my shoes, if you were slandered and hurt like this, would you forgive her? Jianghu said, of course not. Huang Lili has gone too far. That's what you said. Moreover, I didn't harm her. This is all her family's own sins. She deserves to go to jail for taking bribes. The law is strict and fair. Since she did something wrong, she should be punished, right? Xiaxia had already made her stance clear. Jianghu sighed and said, I'm sorry, Xiaxia. I may not be able to empathize with the hurt you have suffered, but I don't mean to ask you to forgive Huang Lili. I was only asked by her to plead on her behalf. Since you've made your stance clear, then this matter will end here. I won't mention it again. After that, Jianghu apologized profusely and hung up the phone. Xiaxia frowned. Actually, every circle had its own rules of the game. Since he wanted to survive in this circle, he had to abide by the rules of the game. If they didn't follow the rules, they would definitely be eliminated. Lin Fengtian purposely filmed all her scenes with Gu Xingzi. Normally, a youth movie like this would only take Liang 3 months to film. Since Xiaxia and Gu Xingzi were in their best condition, their scenes were completed within 10 days. The production crew even held a celebratory banquet for them. Xiaxia and Gu Xingzi took a selfie and posted it on the internet, announcing that they had finished filming their scenes. The fans of the original novel were excited and looked forward to the release of the movie. Xiaxia couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded after working on the set for more than 2 months. This was her first movie and the entire process was like a dream. She understood that the reason why she and Gu Xingze were filmed together was to take care of her. At the celebratory banquet, Lin Fengtian made a special feature of the behind-the-scenes photos and gave it to her. Chapter 956. Yun Shishir was deeply grateful for this. Being able to work with an outstanding director like Lin Fengtian in her first movie was something she did not even dare to dream of. However, something unpleasant happened during the celebratory banquet. Yun Shishir was arranged to sit at the same table as Yang Mi and Lu Jingtian. During the banquet, when Lu Jingtian stood up to make a toast, she accidentally spilled the red wine in her hand on her. This sudden attack caught her off guard. Yun Shishir's body stiffened slightly as her gaze fell on her dress. The bright red wine spilled on her dress, causing it to bloom like a flower. Lu Jingtian covered her mouth in horror. "Oh, no. Shishir, I didn't do it on purpose," Yun Shishir sneered. "I know you didn't do it on purpose." How could she say it out loud if she did it on purpose? Yun Shishir did not even look at her as she wiped her dress with a wet towel and sighed helplessly. This dress was ruined. It was just a dress. If it got dirty, she could just throw it away. Hence, she got up and returned to the nanny van, only to find Lu Jingtian following closely behind her. She turned around warily and squinted her eyes. "Why are you following me?" "Yun Shishir, you seem to be very pleased with yourself." Lu Jingtian sneered. Her eyes were full of contempt and mockery. Yun Shishir raised her brows slightly and sneered. "I don't know what you mean." Lu Jingtian's eyes turned sharp as she shouted, "You do." After a pause, she suddenly said aggressively, "Do you think that you can be so arrogant just because Brother Mu is supporting you? Do you think that he truly loves you? He's only interested in you on a whim. Once this is over, do you think you can still be as doted on as you are today?" Yun Shishir impatiently interrupted her. "Lu Jingtian, I'm tired of hearing such words from you. Song Enya had said such words before, too. That Missy and Lu Jingtian were close, so there was a high chance that the Missy had said something to her to disgust her." Lu Jingtian was annoyed at being interrupted, but she then sneered. "You're the female lead in this movie. Once it's released, your fame will surely soar. You won't be far from becoming famous overnight. Still, I really look down on you. If not for Brother Mu, you wouldn't be where you are today." Yun Shishir blandly replied, "I'm famous because of my own capabilities." Lu Jingtian sneered as if she had just heard a joke. "Tsk. What a nice thing to say. If Brother Mu hadn't given you so many resources, would you have become so famous? Dream on. Why? Are you that envious of me?" Yun Shishir chuckled, unable to hide the teasing in her eyes. "Of course." Lu Jingtian's face was contorted out of shape. "How?" Lu Jingtian flew into a rage out of humiliation after being exposed by her. What's there to be envious of AB*TCH who relied on the unspoken rules to get to where she is? Yun Shishir was unfazed and only said faintly, "You're better than someone with mediocre acting skills and poor script skills. You can't even recite a complete line. If not for your background, Director Lin would have fired you long ago." Chapter 957. You're spouting nonsense, there's no such thing. Do you have any acting skills? It's all because you have that face that fits the role of the character in the script. Lu Jingtian did not realize how sour her words were. Yun Shishir chuckled. There's a saying, beauty and luck are also a form of strength. After a pause, she smiled sweetly. If you're capable, why don't you look prettier than me? Lu Jingtian was stunned for a moment before she gritted her teeth. Yun Shishir enjoyed the sight of her livid face and smiled. Besides, are you in a position to say that I don't have any acting skills? In terms of strength, I can't be compared to you. Lu Jingtian was exasperated. Humph. What kind of power do you have? Do you have the power to be taken advantage of? That's right. Beauty is a form of strength, so are you using your beauty to seduce Brother Mu? Xianxia, I think you're the reincarnation of a vixen who specializes in seducing men. Xianxia cast her a sidelong glance. Indeed, summer insects could not talk about ice. Some people were so jealous that they could not be reasoned with. She coldly said, even without Mu Yaja, I'll still use my strength to prove myself. Lu Jingtian hooted, if you're capable, don't rely on him. Xianxia could not be bothered with her as she maintained a cold face. Seeing her indifference, Lu Jingtian gritted her teeth. Suddenly, she thought of something and smiled contemptuously. Actually, I think you're quite pitiful. Xianxia did not want to bother with her, though, so why waste her breath on her? With this thought in mind, she turned around, only to hear her say from behind, do you know? Brother Mu will be holding a press conference soon to announce his marriage. Xianxia's footsteps paused. Her body stiffened slightly, but she did not turn around. She furrowed her brows slightly. Lu Jingtian took a few steps toward her from behind and spoke in a voice full of arrogance. I heard this from my dad, too. I heard that Brother Mu is holding a press conference to announce his marriage with Mu Wanru. He. In other words, he and Mu Wanru were about to get married. If he really loved you, would he marry another woman? You're just a canary that he's keeping in a cage. He'll play with you when he's happy, and when he's tired of you, it's nothing more than that. That's why I feel sorry for you. You see him as your entire world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Do you really think he cares about you that much? Lu Jingtian was also in love with Mu Yaja, but to her, Mu Yaja was undoubtedly high and mighty. She knew that Mu Yaja and her were like heaven and earth. In her heart, he was like a god. But why was Xianxia able to occupy his heart? Receive all of his love? What right did Xianxia have to have what she couldn't have? Xianxia was silent for a long time. Mu Yaja is going to hold a press conference to announce his marriage? Why didn't he mention this to me? She did not believe that Mu Yaja would announce his marriage with Mu Wanru at a press conference, but if he had other intentions, he should explain it to me clearly, should he not? Xianxia suddenly clutched the corner of her shirt as a conflicted look flashed across her eyes. You see him as your entire world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Was that so? Was that really the case? On the island in the middle of the lake, he had created a mysterious romance for her. In her impression, a man like him had never put in so much effort for anyone. Chapter 958. He had also made a vow to dote on her legitimately. Every time they were intimate, she would look at him with a doting gaze that couldn't be faked. Could it be that those were all lies? Did he do all this for her to deceive her feelings? No way, right? Words could deceive the heart. However, the emotions in his eyes couldn't be deceived no matter what. She regarded him as her whole world. He, on the other hand, used the whole world to protect her. Why should she listen to someone else's one-sided statement and doubt him, then? Xianxia turned around expressionlessly and sneered when she saw the smug look on the other's face. Lu Jingtian was taken aback when she saw her laughing instead of being angry. You're really thick-skinned. How can you be so cheap and still laugh shamelessly? Xianxia's eyes were full of contempt as she coldly said, Lu Jingtian, you're the pitiful one, aren't you? What? Do you know how Mu Yaja treats me? Do you know how he feels about me? Lu Jingtian choked hard. Xianxia's lips curled into a smile that she found extremely dazzling. Like is different from love. Love is unconditional trust, so I believe him. As for you, who are you? What right do you have to sow discord here? Lu Jingtian laughed in anger. Sow discord? Ha! Ha ha! You're really pitiful. It seems that you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. I'm really looking forward to the day you're abandoned. You must be in a sorry state. Alright, then. Let's wait and see, Unspoken said nonchalantly. Lu Jingtian's smile disappeared at her words, and she became angry out of humiliation. Unspoken, however, merely smiled and turned to leave. She clenched her fists tightly, feeling a nameless fire in her heart. She was so angry that she lost her rationality. She actually took a few steps forward and grabbed Unspoken's arm. You're not allowed to leave. Did I say you could leave? I'm not done yet. She originally wanted to humiliate her, but she ended up being humiliated instead. She was filled with grievances and had nowhere to vent them. Unspoken was pulled hard by her and fell to the ground. Lu Jingtian cursed coldly. She flipped over and straddled the woman before slapping her face a few times like a shrew. I'll kill you, you vixen. Born with a seductive face, she seduced men everywhere. I don't know what kind of ability you have, or what kind of charm you have. Not only is Brother Xianxia so smitten by you, even Brother Mu has fallen for your seduction. I'll beat you to death, you bitch. I'll kill you. How could Unspoken be willing to submit obediently? How could she be the kind to be slaughtered? Did she not know how to retaliate when Lu Jingtian hit her? Hence, she grabbed Lu Jingtian's arm with all her strength. Perhaps, she had been humiliated to the extreme, but she somehow managed to push the other away with all her strength. She stood up, and Lu Jingtian was about to pounce on her again. Unspoken nimbly dodged, and the latter fell to the ground, caught off guard. Unspoken then turned around and pinned her down, strangling her neck. Ah! How dare you strangle me? Lu Jingtian cursed. Her usual ladylike demeanor in the production team was gone, and she was like a crazy shrew. Chapter 959. Unspoken returned all the slaps she had received from her earlier and gave her a few hard slaps. If you like him, compete with him openly. I despise people like you the most for resorting to such despicable means. With that, Unspoken gave her a few more slaps without hesitation. Lu Jingtian's legs kicked wildly, but Unspoken suddenly choked her with a little force. Don't move. Unspoken threatened angrily. Lu Jingtian's face flushed red, but she still glared at her defiantly. However, when she felt a suffocating sensation on her neck, she widened her eyes in disbelief. This woman is really using all her strength to choke me? I can't breathe. Lu Jingtian's hands clutched her wrists tightly, her sharp nails leaving deep bloody marks on the back of her hands. Unspoken, on the other hand, did not seem to be afraid of pain or the woman's threatening gestures. Seeing that the latter was still cursing and swearing, she increased the strength in her hands. Lu Jingtian felt suffocated and could no longer utter a word. It was as if she would faint in the next second. Unspoken saw that her face was flushed red, as if blood was about to drip out, and loosened her grip slightly. She had only pinched her to scare her. She wanted her to know that she was not to be trifled with even if she was usually docile. Lu Jingtian, I'm warning you, I won't attack unless I'm attacked, but if someone attacks me, I won't tolerate it to the end either. With that, Unspoken stood up, glared at her coldly, and walked away swiftly. Lu Jingtian got up from the ground, feeling aggrieved and afraid. Tears streamed down her face and wet her clothes. Unspoken's gaze earlier was too scary. Now that she thought about it carefully, she was both shocked and frightened. Unspoken was really bold. How dare she strangle her? She had never been hit by anyone at this age. Even when she made a mistake when she was young, her parents could not bear to hit her. This Unspoken was the first person who dared to lay a hand on her. At the thought of this, she was overwhelmed with grievances. She originally wanted to go back to the celebration party, but now she was angered by Unspoken. Her dress was dirty, and she was in a sorry state. Besides, she had lost her appetite, so she went straight to the lounge, picked up her phone, and called her niece. The moment the call got through, she burst into tears. Song Enya was startled by her cries and hurriedly inquired about what had happened. The two of them were best friends from junior high school to university, and their relationship was very close. Lu Jingtian recounted what had happened to her niece with exaggerated details. She could not stop complaining. "Enya, she actually hit me and even pinched me. You didn't see how overboard she was. She really pinched me hard." Song Enya consoled her for a while, only to hear the other lashing out indignantly, "Enya, how could there be such a disgusting woman in this world? This woman is really disgusting. What right does she have to shout at me? She even said that we'll wait and see. I'm really looking forward to seeing her fall to rock bottom. I really want to see how down and out Brother Mu is when he abandons her. Jingtian, don't be sad. Did she really pinch you?" Song Enya was still in disbelief. Chapter 960. Song Enya was furious. Yun Shishir was really arrogant to dare offend them. Last time, it was her, and this time, it was Lu Jingtian. How could she be so arrogant? Hence, she said to Lu Jingtian, "Jingtian, don't be sad. Don't worry, I'll definitely avenge you." "Okay." Lu Jingtian asked with teary eyes, "How do you plan to take revenge?" He. Just listen to my arrangements when the time comes." Back home, Yun Shishir went to the bathroom to take a shower. Her body was stained with mud from the scuffle with Lu Jingtian earlier. She washed her body carefully and changed into a white dress. Standing in front of the mirror, she lowered her head to look at her arm. The bloody scratches caused by Lu Jingtian were gradually fading, and there was a scratch on the back of her hand from the latter's nails. The wound was very shallow. It was just a layer of skin, so there was no need to put a bandage on it. After dinner, Yu and Xiao Yichen went to the courtyard to play badminton. The two little guys had been sticking together recently. Whether it was sleeping or doing homework, Xiao Yichen liked to stick to Yu. As for Yu, although she despised Xiao Yichen's stupidity on the surface, she gradually opened her heart to Xiao Yichen and became more cheerful. Yun Shishir sat on the sofa, recalling Lu Jingtian's words in her mind. She felt inexplicably vexed. When Mu Yaja returned from the office, he opened the door and saw her alone on the sofa. The lights in the living room were off, and she was leaning against the corner of the sofa quietly. It seemed that she had fallen asleep. He walked to her side and turned on the lights, which woke her up. She opened her eyes, still in a daze. Her eyes were half open, and she seemed to be in a daze. She looked very innocent. However, because of her pair of seductive peach blossom eyes, she looked lazy and seductive. Seeing that he had returned, she immediately sat up and raised her head to look at him. With a faint smile, she said in a hoarse voice, "You're back." He glanced at the table and asked, "Have you eaten?" "Yes, I have." She suddenly added, You went to play badminton with Xiao Yichen." As she spoke, she looked behind him. Where's the dog?" Mu Yaja said, "In the courtyard, playing with two little guys." Oh, he sat down on the sofa and saw that her hair was slightly messy, so he reached out and tucked a few strands of her hair behind her ear. His touch quickly scalded the tips of her ears. They were red, as if she was shy. Yun Shishir suddenly remembered what had happened today. She pursed her lips and wanted to ask something. She tentatively opened her mouth but didn't know where to start. Mu Yaja saw the strange expression on her face. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "What's wrong? Why do you look so pale?" Today, the production team held a celebration party. Yun Shishir looked at him and opened her mouth. She wanted to say something but stopped herself. In the end, she didn't say anything. She also didn't ask about the media conference. Since she had chosen to believe him, she would believe him unconditionally until the end. Although she didn't understand the purpose of his media conference, she didn't believe that he would announce his marriage with Mu Wanru. Although she didn't understand why he kept her in the dark, she believed that he had his reasons for doing so. Chapter 961. Thus, she looked up and smiled. Let's go for a walk. There was a very beautiful river in Beijing. At night, the riverside would be lit up with warm neon lights. It was very beautiful. Standing by the riverside and leaning against the railing, one could see the tallest building in Beijing. It was the symbol of Beijing, a colorful television tower. Both of them were extremely busy and rarely had time to take a leisurely stroll together. Wuxia had pushed off many things today, so he finally had some free time. The neon lights of the night market. Unspoken held onto Wuxia's arm as they walked. She saw many young couples sitting on the benches by the riverside, snuggling together and whispering sweet nothings. It was very romantic. It suddenly occurred to her that she and he seemed to have had very few serious engagements. Thus, she tugged at Wuxia's sleeve and said with a smile, "Wuxia, go on a date with me." Upon hearing this, Wuxia followed her line of sight and smiled faintly. "We're already an old married couple, yet you still want to learn how to date like a youngster?" Unspoken's face darkened, and she muttered unhappily, "We're not old. I'm only 24. I'm not old yet. Also, who's an old married couple with you? We've been together for so long, and we've never gone on a date like other couples." "Alright then. How do you want to go on a date?" Unspoken was unhappy. "Why does it seem like I'm forcing you?" Wuxia saw her aggrieved face and was amused. He crossed his arms and asked, then, "Miss Unspoken, are you willing to go on a date with me?" Unspoken couldn't help but be amused. However, she restrained her smile and said reservedly, "I'll reluctantly agree." She couldn't help but think how blissful it was for them to be able to go on a date like a normal couple. If at this time, the two of them could sit side by side on a bench by the river and admire the beautiful night scenery, she would be very satisfied. Unspoken was about to pull Wuxia over to the bench, but she suddenly noticed that this guy was looking at a couple not far away with a thoughtful expression. She followed his line of sight and saw a couple hugging and kissing each other intimately. The woman's clothes were half removed to her shoulders, revealing her sexy spaghetti strap, while the man's hands were unscrupulously reaching into the woman's clothes, caressing her with abandon. The two of them acted intimately as if no one else was around, occasionally letting out suppressed gasps. The two of them were so engrossed in their kiss that they didn't seem to mind the scrutiny of the passers-by. The battle was getting more and more intense. Could it be that the two of them were going to put on a show of passion on the streets? So explosive. Unspoken blushed and her heart raced as she watched. She quickly turned her head away and didn't look anymore. Wuxia turned his face. His eyes were calm as he sized up Unspoken's awkward expression. His lips curled into a sinister smile as he whispered in her ear, "I heard that this method makes it easier for people to feel sweet passion. Why don't we give it a try?" Unspoken almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face burned even hotter. "You? What are you trying to do? Isn't it good to take advantage of the night to do some exercise that's good for the body and mind? Get lost." Unspoken turned her head and casually pointed at a puff factory not far away. She changed the topic. "Wuxia, I want to eat puffs." Chapter 962. Stupid woman. She really couldn't take a joke. Wuxia held her hand and walked into the cozy little shop. When they walked in, they saw a child crouching excitedly in front of the bar counter, his watery eyes shining with anticipation. A short-haired woman stood by the side and looked helplessly at the child's silly look. She couldn't help but pinch his cheeks. Unspoken looked at him and couldn't help but think of Yu when he was 2 or 3 years old. Yu especially liked desserts. Sometimes, when Unspoken got off work early, she would take him to the dessert shop. The little guy was like that too. He would tiptoe in front of the display cabinet and look greedily at the desserts displayed in the refrigerator. But he wouldn't do that now. Yunshishir ordered a set of matcha-flavored puffs and sat quietly at the bar counter with Muyaja. The shop owner placed a cream puff on the bar counter. The child couldn't wait to grab a cream puff with each hand and greedily put it into his mouth. The shop owner was tickled by his cute appearance and laughed. "Your child is so cute." The woman frowned and said mildly, "How about I give the cute puff to you? This little guy is very naughty." Startled, Yunshishir turned to look at the woman with a smile. However, the woman patted the child's head lazily and said, "This little guy is very troublesome." With that said, the woman rubbed the child's fine hair on his forehead and complained half-jokingly, "Don't be fooled by how obedient he looks now. When he's naughty, it's really a headache." "Children, especially boys, are all naughty," the shop owner said with a smile. However, Muyaja lazily put his arm around Yunshishir's shoulder and said slowly, "When my son was your age, he was also very naughty." Yunshishir was slightly surprised. She didn't expect Muyaja to be like a normal person and chat with others. It felt a little strange. Perhaps the image of Muyaja in front of her had always been that of a high and mighty elite of the empire, the ruler of a storm of blood, like a god. Unexpectedly, he had such a normal side to him. Yunshishir blushed a little. What? Muyaja was a normal person. Huh, really? The woman was slightly surprised. "Handsome, how old are you? You don't look like someone who has a child." 28. "Wow, so young. Is this your lover?" Muyaja lowered his head and glanced at Yunshishir who was leaning against him. Then, he smiled gently and his eyes were filled with affection. "Yes. She is my wife." Yunshishir's face turned even redder. She buried her face shyly. "She is my wife." This sentence really made her blush and her heart beat faster. Immediately, a warm current flowed into her heart. For the first time in her life, she felt such an unfamiliar warmth. The woman walked out of the shop with the child. Muyaja stared at the woman's back until they disappeared into the night. Then, he slowly retracted his gaze. Yunshishir waved the bag of puffs in front of his eyes and asked puzzledly, "Muyaja, what's wrong with you?" Muyaja came back to his senses and smiled as he shook his head and said, "Nothing. I just feel a little envious." Yunshishir didn't understand the meaning of his words for a moment. "Sometimes, I really envy such an ordinary and simple family," Muyaja said sincerely. Chapter 963. Yunshishir was stunned. It was rare to hear such sentimental words from him. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel curious. Yunshishir stared at him with interest. Muyaja cast a sidelong glance at her. "What are you looking at? Let's go." "Wait." Yunshishir grabbed his hand, picked up the phone, and pulled him to her side. She pressed her face against his cheek, raised the phone, and turned on the camera. "Come, smile. What do you want to do?" Yunshishir said, "Smile. We haven't taken a photo together yet." Muyaja raised his eyebrows. "Don't put on such a serious expression. It's very scary. Smile for me." Muyaja looked at the camera blankly and suddenly revealed a cold smile. Click. Yunshishir took a photo and looked at it. She raised her eyebrows and said unhappily, "Muyaja, your smile is so evil." "Evil?" Yunshishir didn't care anymore. She took a few photos and sent them to her private channel happily. "What do you think of the couple's faces? Someone's smile is so evil." She looked up and asked, "Muyaja, do you have a Weibo account?" "I didn't apply for one." "Why didn't you apply for one? You're too outdated." Yunshishir couldn't help but criticize. Muyaja laughed. "Not interested. Apply for one. I'll get it certified for you." "I don't want to." "Why not?" "It's a little troublesome." "Then I'll get it for you." Mu Yaja was helpless. Weibo is boring. I don't understand what's so fun about it. Mr. Mu Yaja, your life is so boring. As she spoke, Yun Shishir took out a small puffball and brought it to his lips. She said with a smile, "Come, try this shop's puff. It's delicious." Mu Yaja frowned slightly as he looked at the bubble ball. His face was full of unwillingness, but he didn't open his mouth. He didn't have a sweet tooth and had never eaten puffs before. Yun Shishir saw the look of disgust on his face and complained, "Why do you have such an expression? I'm feeding you puffs, not arsenic. Why do you look like I'm poisoning you?" Mu Yaja said, "I don't like it." "Then have a taste. It's very delicious. Come, ah." She stuffed it into his mouth as she spoke. Mu Yaja was forced to take a bite. In an instant, the rich cream filled his mouth. He didn't like the taste. He couldn't swallow or spit it out. He frowned deeply. Yun Shishir saw his face turn green and her eyes widened in shock. She asked in confusion, "Hey. What's wrong with you? Are you okay?" Mu Yaja opened his mouth and took a bite. The cream filled his mouth. He opened his eyes in shock. He clearly saw that the ball was round, but he didn't expect it to be wrapped in cream. He didn't like sweet things, especially cream. He would feel nauseous when he ate it. Seeing his face turn green, Yun Shishir was shocked. She quickly asked, "What's wrong? Does it taste bad?" Mu Yaja held it in and didn't spit it out. After swallowing it, he suddenly felt sick of the taste in his stomach. Yun Shishir saw that his expression was too cute and suddenly smiled mischievously. She made another puffball and waved it in front of him. Then, she took a bite in front of him. Chapter 964. It was rare for Yun Shishir to see such an expression on his face. She found it extremely interesting and swallowed a few more puffs. Her mouth was full and cream stained her lips. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows and turned his head away from her. Yun Shishir burst out laughing and said, "So you don't like cream?" Mu Yaja said disdainfully, "It's the way you eat that's too disgusting." Yun Shishir fell silent. Seeing that he had walked ahead, she quickly followed behind him and offered him the puffs in a fawning manner. She raised her brows and asked, "Hee, I still have a few more puffs here. Aren't you going to eat them?" Mu Yaja turned his head away. "Nope." Yun Shishir sighed and stood unhappily at the same spot. All right. It was fine if he didn't like it. Why did he have to show such an expression? It was as though he despised the food she was eating. She lowered her head and pouted her lips resentfully. She picked up the last puffball and bit it. Before she could swallow it, her chin was lifted up by a hand. Yun Shishir looked up and saw Mu Yaja's handsome face suddenly magnified. His long and narrow eyes were curled up devilishly and his thin lips were slightly parted. Right after that, he gently bit the other half of the puff she was biting. His lips gently pressed against hers and cream flowed out. He curled his lips slightly and the tip of his tongue hooked the cream at the corner of her lips and licked it. The kiss was so gentle that Yun Shishir was so shocked that her face and ears turned red. She was stunned on the spot and couldn't say a word for a long time. Mu Yaja bit off half of the puff and looked up. There was a smug smile at the corner of his lips as though he hadn't had enough yet. The tip of his tongue hooked the cream on his lips and he said casually, "It tastes pretty good." She didn't know if he was talking about the puffs or if he was referring to something else with his teasing tone. Yun Shishir pursed her lips. Her eyes were filled with shame and anger. She said coquettishly, "You," before she could finish speaking, her hand was gently held by him. Mu Yaja lowered his head to look at her and asked, "Have you enjoyed yourself?" What? First date. Mu Yaja smiled and rubbed her hair. "It's already so late. Can we go back now?" Yun Shishir originally wanted to nod, but when she thought that she would have to sleep after going back, she was a little unwilling, so she said, "Let's wait a little longer. It's still early." Wuxia glanced at her coldly. He reached out and handed her his watch. "What time is it now?" he asked with a frown. Unspoken glanced at it and answered obediently, "It's 11 o'clock. It's already so late. I have to go back to the company." Thinking of the mountain of cases in the company, Wuxia felt a headache coming on. Upon hearing that he was going back to the company, the smile on Unspoken's face suddenly froze. "Wuxia, can you not go to the company?" She needed him. She was already used to him. She was used to the sense of security in his arms when she opened her eyes every day. She was also used to the fresh fragrance of his hair on the pillow. She couldn't bear to part with him. Wuxia held her chin and pressed the tip of his nose against hers. "What? You can't bear to part with me? I want you to accompany me," Unspoken stammered a few words. Wuxia looked at her and his eyes changed slightly. However, she wrapped her arms around his waist. "I want you to accompany me. Don't go to the company. Stay at home with me tonight, okay?" "Okay, let's go home." Wuxia smiled and pulled her wrist to the car parked by the roadside. "Be good. Go back and rest early." Chapter 965. The indulgence in his words made her feel a tinge of sweetness. Holding her hand like this, with such a tall man walking in front of her and holding her hand tightly, she didn't know why, but there was a trace of satisfaction in her heart that even she couldn't detect. That night, she pushed aside the company's affairs. He did not stay up late and slept with her early. In the dark, Unspoken hugged his waist tightly and rested her head on his chest to listen to his strong heartbeat. Thump, 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 just listening to his heartbeat made her feel at ease. Unspoken could not help hugging him tighter. However, just as she was about to fall asleep, Lu Jingtian's mocking laughter rang in her mind again. "You're just a canary in his cage. He'll play with you when he's happy, but when he's tired of you, that's all there is to it. That's why I think you're quite pitiful. You see him as your whole world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Do you really think he cares about you that much?" Her voice was so real and ear-piercing that it seemed to be ringing in her ears. Unspoken was suddenly jolted awake by the words that suddenly flashed in her mind. Even though she was well aware that Lu Jingtian's words were only meant to provoke her, she still felt a little uneasy. Women were always insecure. In fact, she was also an extremely insecure person. Some were easily swayed by personal gains and losses. This was especially so when her man was such a high and mighty figure who could call the wind and summon the rain, a dragon among men. There were naturally many women who coveted him. Would he really be faithful to her, though? Unspoken raised her head and looked at the man. At this moment, in the dark, his eyes were closed. The darkness seemed to give him something even more charming. Exquisite facial features, deep brows, and handsome silhouette. Especially those long and narrow eyes. Even if his eyes were closed, they still exuded an insufferably arrogant aura of looking down on all living things. He was a man who was as arrogant as a god. Even though he was right by her side, she still felt that it was a little unreal. She suddenly leaned closer to him and planted a kiss on his thin lips. The taste of kissing him was so wonderful that she couldn't help but move her lips for a long time. She covered his warm lips with the tip of her tongue and gently pried open the gap between his lips before sliding in. The man suddenly opened his eyes and cast a sidelong glance at her. Unspoken immediately raised her head. Seeing that he had woken up, her face blushed and she shyly pursed her lips. You didn't sleep?" She looked embarrassed and laughed dryly. This was the first time she took the initiative to kiss him, and he actually bumped into her. Thus, she felt a little embarrassed. In fact, he had already fallen asleep. However, he had always been a light sleeper and would wake up at the slightest movement. When he opened his eyes, she took the initiative to kiss him. For a moment, he was a little surprised. He had never seen her so proactive before. What? Aren't you going to continue? His voice was hoarse, revealing a hint of suppressed gloominess. With that, he flipped over and pressed her under his body. Using the incomplete kiss from before, he kissed her deeply on the lips. He suddenly sank into her. Only when they had enjoyed themselves to their heart's content did they stop. Before he fell asleep, he hugged her. The woman in his arms was already exhausted, and her body was unbelievably limp after their lovemaking. The two fell asleep in each other's arms. Chapter 966. Early in the morning, the sky was still slightly bright. Xianxia was woken up by the movement beside her. By the time she woke up, Wuxia was already dressed in a suit and leather shoes. This man always recovered his energy at lightning speed. She was still so tired, but he was already full of energy. She was a little envious of him. Seeing that she had opened her eyes, he sat by the bed and gently caressed her cheek. "Why are you awake? Sleep a little more." Xianxia raised her hand and covered the back of his hand. "Are you going to the office?" Wuxia planted a kiss on her forehead. "Yes." "You continue sleeping, I'm leaving." With that, he got up and prepared to leave. Xianxia suddenly sat up and called out to him. "Wuxia." The man turned around. She bit her lower lip and suddenly asked, "Will you be back today?" Her face was filled with anticipation. Wuxia glanced at her and then said in a deep voice, "I'll be back early." After saying that, he closed the door and left. Xianxia lay back on the bed and closed her eyes for a while before getting up to prepare breakfast. She then personally sent the two little lads to school. In the afternoon, Xianxia brought the two little lads home. The weather was hot, so Xiao Yichen pestered Yu to go out to buy ice cream. Although Yu was unwilling, she could not resist his pestering and went out with him. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. Xianxia felt strange. Did the two little guys forget to bring money? Thus, she hurriedly opened the door. Just as she opened the door, a familiar face came into view. Song Enya? She was startled to see Lu Jingtian standing beside her niece and an unfamiliar man beside her. "Xianxia, it turns out that Brother Mu is hiding you in his golden house and hiding you here." She then kicked the door wide open and walked in with Lu Jingtian. Xianxia took a few steps back. Her face turned cold. These two people came in a menacing manner. Their faces were unfriendly. It was obvious that they were here for revenge. With a ferocious look in her eyes, Song Enya grabbed her arm the moment she walked in. Her grip was so strong that it almost left a red mark on her wrist. It was as if she could not wait to break her bones. Xianxia struggled, but with a look from the Missy, Lu Jingtian stepped forward and grabbed her other arm. This time, Xianxia was completely immobilized. "Brother! Come quickly! It's this B*TCH. It's her. She hit me last time, and she hit Jingtian yesterday. She shamelessly seduced Brother Mu and bullied me. It's her. Come in and take a good look at this bitch's face." Song Enya called toward the door. Following that, Song Yunxi strode in. The tall figure stood in front of her and looked down at her with a frosty expression. Wuxia rushed home and gave Song Enya a slap. Xianxia looked at the man in front of her. The man in front of her was tall and lean, but his aristocratic aura was there. One look and she could tell that he was rich and respectable. He exuded a neat and experienced aura. With just one look, she could tell that this man was from the military. He had a steel-like military aura. Song Yunxi was still young, but he was already a captain in the capital's military. He looked at Xianxia and sized her up. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's beak. "Are you the one who bullied my sister?" His tone was arrogant and cold. Bully? Chapter 967. What are you doing? What do you think? Song Enya was the first to give her a tight slap. This slap was not careless at all. It directly slapped Yun Shusher's face to the side, and a red handprint quickly appeared on her cheek. Yun Shusher staggered a few steps backward. Her hair was disheveled from the slap, and she looked extremely disheveled. She covered her face, feeling a burning pain on it. She thought to herself, this Song Enya is probably relying on the fact that she has the advantage in numbers to be so overbearing. It's as if she can't wait to slap my face. Her ears, which had just recovered, immediately buzzed. What are you all doing? Yun Shusher raised her head and shouted. Her eyes immediately emitted a cold glint as she glared fiercely at Song Enya. Lu Jingtian was immediately intimidated by her murderous glare. She did not know if she was pretending or not, but she pursed her lips and stomped her feet as she said to Song Yunshi, Brother Yunshi, look. This woman's eyes look as if she can't wait to skin us alive. She's so fierce. Song Yunshi glared at her and then said coldly, Enya, Jingtian, don't be afraid. If this woman dares to do anything to you, I'm still here. Humph. This be *tch, I'm afraid of dirtying my hands by slapping her. Lu Jingtian snorted. Even though she said that, she gathered all her strength and slapped her in the next second. Yun Shusher sneered and said angrily, you guys are really capable. 3 people bullying 1 person? What is this? Are you bullying me with numbers? Song Enya was like a spoiled little princess at this moment, looking down at her condescendingly as if she were looking at a lowly commoner. What a fierce mouth. Yun Shusher, let me tell you, no one has ever hit me in my life. You, on the other hand, are the first to hit me. Who do you think you are? How dare you try to bully me? Ha! You're just a commoner. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because Brother Mu dotes on you? Do you know who I am? How dare you hit me? Do you believe that I can chop off your cheap hand and no one will say anything? Yun Shusher was so infuriated that she burst into laughter when she heard that. Song Enya was too arrogant. How dare she threaten to chop off her hand? Is there no law? Are you trying to use your power to oppress others in broad daylight? Law? Song Enya laughed as if she had just heard the funniest joke in the world. She then said coldly, Yun Shusher, my words are the law now. If you obediently kowtow and apologize to me now, I can consider whether to let you go and not pursue this matter. Apologize? Kowtow? Yun Shusher couldn't take it anymore. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. Why should I kowtow and apologize to you? What did I do wrong? Stubborn bitch, I think you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Don't think that you don't know how high the sky is and how deep the earth is just because Brother Mu dotes on you. Enya is from the Song family, haven't you heard of the capital's Song family? Ha! Even if you're superficial and ignorant, you should know who the current mayor of the capital is. You've offended Enya, this isn't something that can be overturned with just a few words of apology. As she spoke, she pushed Yun Shusher to the ground and started fighting with her. Chapter 968. The Songs? So what if they're from the Song family? Do they think they can trample and humiliate people's dignity just because they have a bit of family background? Yun Shusher grabbed Lu Jingtian's hand and, with a tug, pulled her to the ground. She then flipped her body over and pinned her on top of her, returning the slaps she had given her earlier. Lu Jingtian struggled violently, and Song Enya pounced on Yun Shusher to wrestle with her. When women fought, it was nothing more than pulling hair and slapping faces. Song Enya and Lu Jingtian used such despicable methods to the extreme. Lu Jingtian, in particular, grabbed Yun Shusher's hair and refused to let go. Song Enya gave Yun Shusher a few more slaps. In the midst of the fight, Yun Shusher's lips had a deep cut, and blood was seeping out. Yun Shusher felt a metallic taste flowing into her mouth. When she noticed that the corner of her lips had been cut, a cold glint flashed across her eyes. Song Enya was so anxious that she did not pay attention to her strength and pinched and hit Yunshursher. At this moment, they had completely lost their usual elegant demeanor. They were ruthless and could not wait to tear Yunshursher's annoying face apart. For a moment, Lu Jingtian and Song Enya had the upper hand by working together. However, what was the saying? Even a rabbit would bite when cornered. For some reason, Yunshursher was forced to lose her rationality. She did not know where she got her strength from, but even Song Enya and Lu Jingtian could not hold her back. Seeing that the situation had gone out of control, Song Yunshi could only watch helplessly as Yunshursher slapped Song Enya's face. She could not stand it anymore. She stepped forward and pushed Lu Jingtian and Song Enya away. Then, she grabbed Yunshursher's hands with one hand and dragged her to the center of the living room. Yunshursher felt the pain of her wrist being dislocated. Then, she was thrown to the ground. Her back collided with the cold tiles, and the pain made her suck in a breath of cold air. Song Yunshi's anger rose from her heart. He had always doted on Enya as she grew up, and he had never once let her get hurt. His beloved sister was being bullied by this woman. For a moment, Song Yunshi couldn't care less about his so-called gentlemanly demeanor. He viciously grabbed her neck, his eyes bloodshot. "Brother! Hit her hard. Beat her to death." Song Enya covered her face, which was stinging from Yunshursher's slap earlier, and hooted with a ferocious look. At this moment, the footsteps of the two little munchkins could be heard from outside the door. Yun Tianyu saw that the door was wide open and immediately heard some discordant sounds. His heart skipped a beat and he quickly walked to the door. Just as he reached the living room, he saw Song Yunshi strangling Yunshursher. His eyes widened in shock, and the ice cream in his hand fell to the ground. "What's wrong?" Xiao Yichen, who was behind him, rushed into the living room. When he saw the heart-wrenching scene in front of him, anger surfaced on his face. In his anger, he crushed the ice cream cup in his hand. "What are you doing? Let go of my mommy." Xiao Yichen ran forward and kicked Song Yunshi's knee. This angry kick was equivalent to 80% of an adult's strength. Even Song Yunshi, who was well trained in the military, could not withstand it. She felt a sharp pain in her knee, and she staggered a few steps back before falling to the ground. This lad's strength is D*MN amazing. Chapter 969. Xiao Yichen spread his arms in front of Yunshursher to protect her. However, when he saw the intruders' faces clearly, he was shocked. It was actually Song Enya and Song Yunshi. Yu also ran forward in a panic. He walked to Yunshursher's side and squatted down. He saw that Yunshursher's hair was messy, her face was red and swollen, and the corner of her mouth was bleeding profusely. He was so shocked that his heart almost stopped at that moment. His heart ached so much that he almost suffocated. Tears gushed out in an instant as he called hoarsely, "Mommy." Xiao Yichen turned his head and saw Yunshursher in a sorry state. His heart ached terribly. He looked at her body and saw that it was covered with grayish-black footprints. It was a tragic sight. Only God knew what had happened not long after they left. Song Enya was slightly surprised to see Xiao Yichen. When she saw Yun Tianyu behind him, who looked exactly like him, she was momentarily stunned. How? This child looked exactly like Xiao Yichen. Twins? Her first reaction was that Xiao Yichen and Yun Tianyu were twins. When she heard how close Yu and Yunshursher were, could it be that this child was secretly hidden by Yunshursher? Her thoughts quickly reorganized. She quickly came up with a conspiracy theory. Could it be that Yunshursher had given birth to twins as a surrogate for the Mu family back then and hid one of the children for her own selfish desires? She then used the child to rise in status because of her son. Was she trying to use the child to climb up the social ladder? No wonder. No wonder Brother Mu doted on this woman so much. Wasn't that all because of the child? Yun Shishir was really a shrewd woman. She actually used the child to climb up the social ladder. Since ancient times, the status of a woman in a wealthy family rose because of her son. The same goes for the Mu family. Once she figured it out, the disdain and anger on Song Enya's face deepened. She pointed at Yun Shishir and cursed, B**tch, you're really shrewd. She's actually hiding the Mu family's heir, trying to use her son to rise in status and marry into a rich family. To think that you have such wild ambitions. Brother Mu must have been fooled by you. Shut up. Xiao Yichen and Yu said in unison. Song Yunxi stood up. When she looked up, she saw Xiao Yichen and Yu standing in front of Yun Shishir. She was also stunned. He had seen Xiao Yichen before, but who was the other child? Brother. Brother, did you see that? Song Enya tugged at her brother's arm and pointed at Yun Shishir. This woman is a surrogate for Brother Mu, but she's hiding one of the children. She's delusional to think that she can become a phoenix just because of her child. Yun Shishir is really a scheming woman. Yu calmed himself down and helped Yun Shishir to sit on the sofa. When he turned his head, his face was frosty. His clear eyes, in particular, were emitting a blood-red murderous aura. His gloomy and powerful aura quickly spread to every corner of the living room. Lu Jingtian, who was standing at the side, felt an inexplicable chill and her shoulders shivered. Yu clenched his fists and stared at them with his beautiful eyes. Who are you? Song Enya snorted. Children shouldn't interfere in adult matters. This is my house. You're not allowed to mess around in my house. Yun Tianyu reminded her coldly in a domineering tone. Chapter 970. At this moment, she actually saw the shadow of Mu Yaja in him. Especially that pair of cold and domineering eyes, it was as if they were a carbon copy. Yu pointed at the door and said in a tone that brooked no argument. Get out. Why should I get out? Song Enya lost her temper and blurted out, You little rascal, your mouth is quite cheap. Your mother is a cheap wretch, and so are you. Get out. Leave before my patience runs out. Yu pointed at the door with a murderous glint in his eyes. Don't appear in front of my mommy again. Seeing your shrewish faces makes me lose my appetite. He had never scolded anyone because his mommy had taught him that boys must be gentlemanly and elegant toward girls. However, seeing his mommy being bullied by these few people, he hated Song Enya to the core. How could he still be gentlemanly toward her? You! How dare you call me a shrew? Song Enya furiously stepped forward and raised her hand to slap his face. However, just as she was about to land on the ground, Little Yichen stopped her with his quick reflexes and held her wrist tightly. Yun Shishir hurriedly shielded Yu in her arms. When Xiao Yichen thought of how Song Enya had called his mommy and brother cheap wretches, an uncontrollable anger rose in his heart. He held Song Enya's wrist tightly and raised his eyes to glare at her. With a crack, Song Enya's wrist was dislocated by him. Ah! Song Enya let out a tragic shriek and retreated a few steps. She held her wrist and hid behind Song Yunxi. Lu Jingtian looked at her hand and exclaimed, Ah! Enya, your hand is dislocated. Her exclamation attracted Song Yunxi's attention. He lifted Song Enya's hand and saw that it was indeed dislocated. Tears streamed down Song Enya's face as she whimpered in pain. Song Yunxi's eyes were filled with heartache when she heard this. She could not care less as she carried Song Enya in her arms and hurriedly left. When Lu Jingtian saw Song Yunxi carrying Song Enya away, she followed closely behind. Before she left, she turned back to glare at Yun Shishir. Just as she was about to open her mouth to scold her, Yun Tianyu and Xiao Yichen's cold gazes swept over her. Her heart shuddered slightly, and her lips quivered. Thus, she stomped her feet resentfully and left unwillingly. After he left, Yun Shishir finally let down her guard. Her whole body went limp on the ground. She lowered her head and tried her best to hold back the humiliation and grievance. She bit her lips and tears welled up in her eyes. Why did they have to humiliate her like this? Why, could it be that with power and influence, one could disregard human dignity? Could it be that with power and influence, one could easily trample on other people's dignity? Yun Tianyu supported her by the shoulders. Seeing her in such a sorry state, his heart ached terribly. It was as if a small knife had sliced open a bloody wound on his chest. Even though he was not hurt physically, his heart still ached terribly. "Mommy, does it hurt?" Xiao Yichen hugged her shoulders as well. His heart ached so much that his eyes were wet. He pursed his lips tightly and hugged Yun Shishir's shoulders tighter. Yu hurriedly rummaged through the drawers and drawers to find the first aid kit. He then took out some cotton and carefully wiped her wound. Yun Shishir bit her lip and wanted to do it herself. Yun Tianyu dodged her outstretched hand, though. "Mommy, don't move. Be good and sit there." Chapter 971. Her body was riddled with scratches of various sizes, all of which were caused by her niece's and Lu Jingtian's nails. There were some places that didn't break, but there were some places where the force was too great. The skin was broken, and traces of blood flowed out. There was an especially deep cut on her elbow. Yun Tianyu dipped a cotton ball in some ointment and applied it carefully, but his tears flowed uncontrollably and landed on her arm. His heart ached so much. Why did they do this to Mommy? His heart ached so much that he felt like suffocating. He would rather bear the pain from Yun Shishir's injuries on himself. Xiao Yichen carefully tidied up her messy hair. He loosened her hair tie and combed it with a comb, causing a clump of hair to fall off. Ah, Xiao Yichen received quite a shock. His eyes turned red. He even lost so much hair. Just how intense was the battle he had just experienced? This was too much. How could they bully Mommy? Little Yichen gritted his teeth. His face was flushed red with anger, and he had nowhere to vent his pent-up anger. Yu carefully applied ointment on her wounds and then held Yun Shishir's face in his hands. His heart ached when he saw the bloody cut on the corner of her lips. "Yu, give Mommy a kiss. Mommy doesn't feel pain." Yu pecked the corner of her lips a few times. His warm little mouth touched her wound as if it could alleviate her pain. Yun Shishir hugged the two little lads in her arms. She was so upset that she held back her grievances. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she stubbornly refused to let them fall. "Mommy, Yu is here. Yu will protect you and won't let the bad guys bully you." Yu choked with grief. "It's Yu's fault. Yu shouldn't have left Mommy's side. Mommy is hurt, Yu is so heartbroken. Yu." Yun Shishir's voice was hoarse and broken. Yu hugged her even tighter. "Mommy, if you're sad, cry it out. Don't be afraid, Yu is here. Mommy, cry if you're sad. Xiao Yichen will be with you too." Xiao Yichen hugged her waist, trying to warm her cold heart with the warmth of his body. Yun Shishir bit down hard on her lips, refusing to show her weak side in front of the two little lads. Yu hugged Yun Shishir tightly, but her eyes were frozen. How dare he bully his mommy? Damn it! He had committed a heinous crime. On the other side, Song Enya was sent to the hospital by Song Yunshi. When she returned home, she threw herself into Jiang Qimeng's arms with an aggrieved look and bawled her eyes out. In the evening, Jiang Qimeng made a call and reported Yun Shishir's crime to Mu Yaja. By the time Mu Yaja received the call, he was already on his way home. Jiang Qimeng, who was on the other end of the line, did not give him any face as she loudly reprimanded him. "Yaja, I heard from Enya that you have a mistress named Yun Shishir, right? That woman is really arrogant. Ever since Enya was young, I couldn't bear to let her get hurt, but look at what happened in the end. That Yun Shishir is really capable. She actually dislocated Enya's arm. Tell me, is this appropriate?" What do you mean? I don't understand. Mu Yaja was also annoyed by her random questioning. You're asking me what I mean. Why don't you go back and ask that *tch yourself? Jiang Qimeng continued to denounce him. Chapter 972. Just as he was feeling vexed, Jiang Qimeng continued her tirade. Enya has always been the apple of the family's eye. She may be a little spoiled, but she's not a bad person by nature. How can a young girl like Yunshushi be so vicious as to break Enya's wrist? We're living in a civilized society now. How can there be such an unreasonable person? How can this be? Don't blame Sister Meng for not giving you face. No matter what, I must make that woman give the songs an explanation. I'll make her come to our house and apologize. Fortunately, it's only a dislocated wrist this time. If it's a broken bone, I'll definitely sue her and send her to jail. After that, the call was hung up. Mu Yaja's eyes were filled with anger as he tossed his phone aside. Why did such a thing happen when he wasn't around for a day? Enya's wrist was broken? Yunshushi broke it? What exactly happened? Mu Yaja was utterly vexed. Hence, when he reached home, he pushed open the door and walked in coldly. The living room was dark and empty. He then walked to the bedroom and saw Yunshushi lying on the bed. The lights were off in the room, and it was cold and quiet. Her body was curled up on the bed. He did not know if she was asleep or just lying there. However, despite such a big thing happening, she acted as if nothing had happened. He should at least ask about the whole thing. Why did she hurt Song Enya? Hence, he spoke. Yunshushi. Yunshushi woke up abruptly and sat up on the bed. When she saw that he had returned, a smile appeared on her face. However, when she saw the cold and sullen look on his face, the smile on her face faded bit by bit. What exactly happened between you and Enya? I heard that you broke her wrist. Mu Yaja was the first to ask, but he asked such a question. Hence, Yunshushi's expression turned colder. He called her by her full name in a cold tone, but when he called Song Enya, he sounded so affectionate. What? What does this mean? What did that mean? Could it be that Song Enya had complained to him? Is he here to denounce me? She thought that no matter what happened, he would trust her unconditionally like she did. No matter what others said to him, he would calmly ask her what had happened. In the end, he was so angry the moment he came back, as if she was the heinous sinner. Was it her fault? Song Enya was the one who barged into her house and beat her up, so why was she the one being questioned? Was he not going to ask the Songs about what his niece had done to her? Yunshushi pursed her lips tightly and remained silent, stubbornly keeping her mouth shut. Her cold demeanor made it seem like she was angry with him. When Mu Yaja saw her indifferent expression, he became even angrier. What? Being stubborn even after doing something wrong? Let me ask you, why did you break her arm? What the hell happened? You're really protective of her. Yunshushi forced a smile and sighed. Even though her eyes were smiling, her heart was filled with an indescribable bitterness. Did your heart ache when you heard that she was hurt? That's why you came back so aggressively to denounce me, isn't it? She asked in a cryptic voice. All of a sudden, she was a little envious of Song Enya. Look, she was the one who was unreasonable first. She did something wrong and shed a few tears, and a group of people coaxed her. Chapter 973. It was so unfair. She sighed desolately in her heart. Mu Yaja heard her sarcastic tone and frowned slightly. However, he heard her ask back with a smile, so? Do you want me to go over and kowtow to apologize? I hurt her. Her Song family has power and influence. Do you want me to go to jail? People with a bit of power are really different. They can cover the sky with one hand. I'm really scared. How can a commoner like me fight with the dignified daughter of the Song family? He looked unhappy. He went forward and grabbed her chin. His cold eyes stared at her face. I'm asking you a question. Do you have to be so mean? Armed with a baton? Yunshursher had tears in her eyes, but she laughed. She held back her tears and pretended to be calm as she asked, then what do you want me to do? I did break her hand, I did hit her, and I even slapped her. I even called her *tch and shameless. Muyaja was so angry that he was at a loss for words. He couldn't help but use more strength in his hands. I'm just asking you what happened. Do you have to use such a tone? Yunshursher only felt that her chin was about to be dislocated by him. She felt even more wronged for a moment. Before she finished speaking, her tears fell and rolled down. They dripped on the back of his hand. It was frighteningly hot. A woman's mind was so delicate and sensitive. After such a thing happened, she was looking forward to him returning home to give her a warm hug and listen to her grievances. He didn't ask for justice for her. However, when he came back, he was so aggressive and said that he wanted to listen to her explanation. What was there to explain? Why did she have so many things to explain? Yunshursher bit her lips. Then, as if she had lost all her strength, her voice was hoarse and broken. Muyaja, what do you want me to do? Don't cry. He was so afraid that she would cry. Once she cried, he would be completely helpless. He told her not to cry, but her tears fell even more violently. Drop by drop, they rolled down like broken pearls. Liking you is such a tiring thing. You're so outstanding and unattainable. As for me, I'm so lowly, as low as dust. Muyaja, liking you is really tiring. She bit her red lips and turned her face away. She didn't want this man to see her sorry state. Muyaja reached out and wanted to hug her. But Yunshursher pushed him. She rolled and wrapped herself in the blanket, unwilling to be touched by him. She was clearly trying to avoid him. But would he allow her to escape? He walked over, lifted the blanket, and pulled her into his arms. Yunshursher, on the other hand, struggled like a madwoman and bellowed, "Don't touch me. Get away. Stop fooling around. Be good and listen to me." He held her tightly in his arms, not allowing her to struggle. He was so strong and domineering that he didn't give her any room to resist. When she calmed down, he hugged her even tighter and said in a deep voice, "Just now, I wasn't rational enough. Maybe things aren't what I thought. I came back not to convict you, but to listen to your explanation. So, you don't have to be so sarcastic with your words." Yunshursher remained silent, but the anxiety in her eyes eased a little. Chapter 974. If he trusted her more, he would not be like this. Would he believe everything that Song Enya said unconditionally? What about her, then? Would he listen to her explanation? Still, why did trust have to be built on an explanation? Muyaja did not know what was on her mind. Seeing her silence, he leaned close to her ear and said in a deep voice, "I don't care what conflict you have with Enya, but she's the mayor's daughter. She grew up being pampered like a spoiled princess, so it's inevitable that she's a little arrogant and willful, but she's not a bad person by nature. You're older than her, so you should give in to her a little. No matter who's right or wrong between the two of you, you should at least apologize for injuring her hand." Yunshursher's heart turned cold all of a sudden. She wiped away her tears forcefully. The grievances in her heart were like a turbulent wave that came crashing over like a mountain, completely engulfing her. "She deserves it for having her hand broken," she said calmly, but her voice was cold. Muyaja's eyes turned cold. "What?" I said. She suddenly raised her head and met his cold gaze. She said word by word, "She deserves it for having her hand broken." "Shut up." He scolded her. He could not hide the anger on his face. His eyes were so cold that they seemed to freeze her to the bone. I'll give you 3 seconds to take back your words. Take back my words? Take back my words? Xianxia looked at him in disbelief. He actually shouted at her for Song Enya's sake. The expression on his face was so fierce, and his eyes were like cold rays. It was not that Xianxia was pretentious, but at this moment, she was a little doubtful. What kind of place did Song Enya occupy in his heart? Was it really just a cousin's relationship with his cousin? So much so that he came home in a rage without a word. It was obvious that he was here to denounce her. She said that she deserved it, but he actually asked her to take it back with such a bad attitude. Did he not think about it carefully? Was she such an unreasonable person? Xianxia seemed to be against him. She refused to say anything. Her eyes were wide open, and tears were rolling in her eyes. However, she stubbornly refused to let them fall. Was this stupid woman trying to fight him head-on? Xianxia, what's with your attitude? She was stunned for a moment and almost lost her mind under that cold gaze. However, when she came back to her senses, she stubbornly raised her little face and said, "Why should I take back my words?" The man frowned. She felt wronged and angry. Her little hands gripped the bed sheets tightly, unwilling to give in. She deserved it. I take back my words. He interrupted her again. His words were cold and emotionless, so cold that it made people feel unfamiliar. Xianxia's face was red with anger, and the bedsheets were crumpled in her hands. Wuxia. What right do you have to speak to me in such a tone? It's clearly not my fault. It's obviously. The long fingers pinching her chin exerted some force, and she gasped in pain. In the silent confrontation between the two, the coldness in the man's eyes became more and more dangerous. I won't repeat myself a third time. His voice became sterner, and his eyes became more sinister. Xianxia, I don't have patience. Xianxia pursed her lips. She could no longer hold back her tears, and they rolled down. The man's eyes narrowed slightly. I thought you were a sensible woman, but I didn't expect you to be so unreasonable. Chapter 975. Xianxia suddenly laughed miserably and curled her lips. I'm vicious, ignorant, and unreasonable. I'm such a woman. Have you just realized it now? Wuxia's gaze turned even colder. She suddenly broke free from his grip and said uncontrollably, since you feel sorry for her, I'll return her hand that I hurt, okay? I'll return her injury to her, okay? However, she immediately walked to the wall, clenched her fist tightly, and smashed it hard on the wall. Bang! A loud sound was heard. It was heavy and powerful. Wuxia was startled. He got up abruptly, walked over to her side, and grabbed her hand abruptly. Looking down, he saw that her knuckles were red and swollen. Xianxia. What are you doing? Wuxia was furious. This woman would rather hurt herself than give in to him. How could she be so stubborn? Do you have to be so stubborn? Wuxia's heart ached and he was angry. However, when he lowered his head to look at her, he happened to see some strange marks on her shoulder. He stopped talking and pulled open her clothes. His fingers brushed aside her clothes, only to see that there were some bloody marks that seemed to have been made by fingernails. They weren't broken, but they left a deep bloody mark. What's going on? He asked. Xianxia raised her hand and swatted his hand away. She slowly hugged her shoulder and squatted down. She was like a person drifting on the sea, welcoming the waves that kept crashing over, but there was no shore in sight. She felt helpless and hopeless. He leaned over and scooped her into his arms. Ignoring her struggles, he started to check on her. It wasn't just her shoulder. Her arms, elbows, knees, calves, waist. Every part of her skin that was exposed to the air had different degrees of scratches. Some of them were light and didn't break the skin. Some of them were heavy and broke the skin and had been applied with medicine. However, He could vaguely imagine how pathetic she was before. Who did this? He asked angrily in a deep voice. Why were there so many injuries on her body? This clearly looked like it was caught by someone. When he thought of catching, he thought of women fighting. When men fought, it was mostly a confrontation of strength, but when women fought, it seemed a little crazy. If they didn't pull her hair, they would slap her face. If that wasn't enough, they would scratch her. She had seen how ruthless a woman could be when she threw a tantrum. The injuries on his body were obviously caused by a woman. Xianxia lowered her head and ignored him. She snorted a few times but did not make a sound. The man checked her from head to toe again. When she didn't speak, he lifted her chin and searched her face with his eyes. He quickly caught a glimpse of the unusual redness on her cheeks. On the little face buried in her hair, there were faint fingerprints. She had kept her head down the entire time, and if one did not look carefully, they would not have noticed it at all. The coldness in his eyes intensified, but his gaze fell on the corner of her lips, where he saw a deep cut. It was a shocking sight. In his eyes, women were fragile, like delicate flowers. If he wasn't careful, he would hurt her. After all, there was a great disparity in strength between men and women. Therefore, he had always been careful with her, afraid that he would hurt her even a little. However, now, the woman he had always carefully protected was actually hurt by someone else. The coldness in his heart rose to the extreme and kept surging. Chapter 976. Connecting the dots to what had happened earlier, he could guess who had caused Xianxia's injuries. Still, why didn't she say anything? Wuxia was a little annoyed. Why didn't she tell him that she was injured? Is it Enya's doing? Huh? He grabbed her chin, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. Answer me. She pushed him away stubbornly, her tone cold and distant. What has it got to do with you? What do you mean it has nothing to do with me? He became even more furious and grabbed her little hand that was causing trouble. With a tug, her entire body fell into his embrace. You're not allowed to say that. Xianxia sucked in a deep breath of cold air. She raised her head and glared at him with her reddened eyes. Fine. Didn't you want to ask? Then, I'll tell you. Who else could it be other than Song Enya? She barged into our house for no reason with Lu Jingtian and a stranger. Without a word, she came up and slapped me. She even said something like, "Is the Song family someone I can afford to offend?" Even if she chopped off one of my hands, no one can do anything to her. On what basis? On what basis can she be so arrogant and trample on other people's dignity? Isn't it because her family is powerful and influential? She's a bully. Not only that, she even wanted me to kowtow and apologize to her. What a good kowtow and apologize. She's not my parents, so on what basis should I kneel to her? That's why we fought. I've told you everything. Are you satisfied now? Are you satisfied now? The last sentence was shouted out in a hoarse voice. His voice was hoarse, as if he was venting all of his strength. Wuxia was stunned. After shouting everything, Xianxia panted for a moment to calm herself down. Pursing her lips, she said in a hoarse and trembling voice, "What can I do? Do I really have to kowtow to her? How lowly must I be to allow her to trample on my dignity?" The feeling of having one's dignity trampled on was worse than death. As she spoke, she curled herself into a ball and buried her face in his chest. She didn't want this man to see her at her most embarrassing moment. How nice would it be if he could find a quiet place to heal his wounds? The man hugged her. Through the thin material of her clothes, he could feel her hot breath, as well as the hot and wet traces. "Don't cry. It was my fault just now." He bowed his head to her and admitted his fault. There was indeed a problem with his attitude just now. Thus, he swallowed his pride and whispered an apology into her ear. "Sorry. These 3 words were even more important than 1,000 pieces of gold. He was such a proud person. He was the heir of the Mu family and the future head of the family. He had always been the pride of the heavens. He had never lowered his head to anyone, nor had he ever apologized to anyone. However, this was the only time he had personally said these 3 words. It was also the only time that she had put down all her pride in front of someone. I didn't know the truth and got angry at you. It's my fault. Don't cry, or else, my heart will ache. As she cried, his heart ached as well. He had never been patient with women. Especially when it came to women's tears. However, as long as it was her tears, he couldn't do anything about it. Whenever she cried, his heart would soften and he would be utterly defeated. Yunshirshi's gaze shifted slightly. She felt that the 3 words, sorry, coming from this man's mouth was so unreal. Chapter 977. The anger and grievance that filled his heart instantly dissipated by more than half in the face of these 3 words that were filled with guilt and tenderness. Yunshirsher was a little angry with herself. Why was she so disappointing? She had originally planned to never forgive this man in this lifetime. However, when she heard those words, the hardest part of her heart instantly softened. Mu Yaja carried her to sit on the bed. He held her in his arms and was about to lift her clothes. She quickly stopped him. What are you doing? Be good, don't move. Let me see. Don't look. She rejected him righteously. However, would he really listen to her even if she rejected him? He did not allow her to say anything and lifted her skirt high up. However, the scene that entered his eyes made his eyes hurt. It turned out that the scratches were considered small. All he saw were bruises of various sizes on her fair and clean body. With one look, he knew that someone had ruthlessly pinched her. This woman's body was extremely sensitive. Usually, it would show in bed. However, if he did not pay attention to the strength of his hands, he would leave marks. Therefore, he had always been very careful when dealing with her. He loved her fair and jade-like skin, but now, it was unbelievably damaged. Mu Yaja's eyes became increasingly cold. He ran his fingers over the bruises, and she immediately gasped softly. It hurts. Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen returned home after buying the medicine. They had just opened the bedroom door when they saw this scene. Yu Yu's face turned red. She thought that her daddy and mommy were doing something embarrassing. However, when she took a closer look, it turned out that Mu Yaja was checking her injuries. Daddy! He called out. Then, he walked over with his head lowered and handed him the medicine to reduce bruises and swelling. Mommy, does the wound still hurt that much? He turned his face and faced the wall. He did not look at her, but he asked with concern. Yunshirsher could not help but feel cold. At such a young age, he already knew the difference between men and women. It doesn't hurt anymore, Yunshirsher said. Yu Yu pursed her lips. He had no idea what had happened, and his mother did not mention a word about it either. If he were to find out the reason for Song Enya's visit, he would probably ignore him entirely. Did you just go to buy medicine? Mu Yaja asked. Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen nodded. Have you eaten? No. I'll go get some food right away. Daddy, do you want to eat? No need. I've eaten. Yu Yu nodded and glanced at Yunshirsher. Seeing that she had calmed down a little, she left the room with peace of mind. Mu Yaja picked up the ointment and applied it on his palm. He then carefully rubbed the wound, slowly and gently. Yunshirsher frowned in pain. It hurts, bear with it. You'll recover faster after I apply the ointment. As Mu Yaja spoke, his movements became gentler as he applied the ointment and gently rubbed it. It was rare to see such a patient side of him. Yunshirsher's heart warmed slightly, but when she thought of the aggressive side of him when he came back, she could not help but feel angry again. She muttered, "Don't think that I'll forgive you just because of this. Mu Yaja raised a brow and glanced at her. He then increased the strength of his hand. Yunshursher hissed in pain and then glared at him angrily. Are you doing this on purpose? Be good. This woman was actually pushing her luck when he gave in a little. Chapter 978. After a moment of silence, she asked tentatively, do you know that Song Enya likes you? Huh? Mu Yaja did not react at first. He raised a brow at first, but when he realized what she was asking, he fell silent. Do you know? She nudged him again when he did not reply. Only then did he reply, I know. You know? Yunshursher was slightly surprised. It's not that kind of like. It's, I know what you're referring to. Mu Yaja frowned. Did this stupid woman think that he was as stupid as she was? Of course, he knew what Song Enya was thinking about him. Yunshursher, on the other hand, was slightly stunned. Since he knew, why did he still have such a reaction? She snorted unhappily. There are so many women who like you. The man glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. It seemed that there were many men who were pestering her. However, when he caught a glimpse of the displeasure on her face, he suddenly smiled. Why? Are you jealous? Yunshursher bit her lip and did not answer. He could not help but increase the strength of his hand, deliberately hurting her and not allowing her to escape. Answer me. Yunshursher flew into a rage out of humiliation. Don't go overboard. She raised her head, only to see the man's handsome face quickly pressing down on hers. His thin lips covered hers and kissed away her sweet breath. He gently dotted her lips. Unlike the past, where he took her by force, he kissed her lips gently. He kissed her lips, then the corner of her lips where she was cut. Then, he kissed her forehead, the tip of her nose, her cheeks, and finally landed on her lips. He went deeper and deeper. She shut her mouth tightly, not allowing him to invade her lips. However, he increased the strength of his hand. She opened her lips slightly in pain and sucked in a breath of cold air. He took advantage of the situation and entered, gently sweeping her. Somehow, he wanted her. However, now was not the time. What she needed more now was rest. With this thought in mind, he fiercely suppressed the desire bursting out of his body. He lowered his eyes and extinguished the flame in his eyes. After applying the ointment on her wounds, he let her rest early. After experiencing the ridiculous war in the afternoon, she seemed to be exhausted. Once her head hit the pillow, she quickly fell asleep. After covering her with the blanket, he left the room. In the living room, Yun Tianyu had just finished cooking the fried rice. Seeing him come out, he immediately went forward to ask, "Daddy, how is Mommy?" "He's asleep." He reached out and gently stroked Yu Yu's hair. "Be good. Don't disturb her. Let her sleep a little longer." "Yes." Yu Yu suddenly frowned and asked, "Daddy, do you know what happened this afternoon?" "I have a general understanding." Recalling the scene he saw when he returned home this afternoon, a bone-chilling glint flashed across his eyes. "Who is she?" Mu Yaja saw the murderous look that flashed across his face. He knew in his heart that if he let him know who did it, he was afraid. This son of his appeared to be cultured and refined, like an elegant little gentleman, but when his reverse scale was touched, he would do crazy things. "You don't have to worry about this, I'll handle it," he said. He would let Song Enya apologize personally. Chapter 979. Yunshursher was his reverse scale, and anyone who touched her would be infuriated. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows slightly. This child was extremely stubborn in this aspect. In this aspect, he was very much like him when he was younger. However, it was undeniable that children were simple and stubborn, unlike adults who could consider all aspects. Still, when dealing with a matter, one could not be too extreme and unconventional. Xiao Yichen walked over as well. He looked at him and then at the man. Mu Yaja and Yu Yu looked at each other as if they were confronting each other. Yu Yu clenched his fists and calmed the anger in his heart. Then, he said in a low voice, "All right, I'll respect your decision this time. However, this is the only time. There won't be a next time. Consider it as giving daddy face. Good boy." With that, Mu Yaja slowly walked to the door. Xiao Yichen's eyes flickered slightly. "Daddy, aren't you staying here today?" "No," he replied faintly and left. It was late at night. The night sky was especially dark tonight. It was like an endless black curtain pressing down on the sky, just like Song Enya's heart at this moment. She lay in bed, tossing and turning. Her thoughts were in a mess and she could not fall asleep no matter what. She took out her phone from time to time. Previously, she had sent several messages to Mu Yaja to complain about Yunshirshi's crimes. However, after waiting for a long time, she still did not receive a response from Mu Yaja. She thought that he would immediately rush over and ask about her well-being after knowing that she was injured. However, she waited until late at night, but there was not a single call. It was inevitable that she felt deeply disappointed. She had a feeling that Mu Yaja was not as close to her as before. There was a faint estrangement and distance between them. She did not know what was going on. It must be that Yunshirshir. Song Enya's heart was filled with resentment at the thought of that woman. She felt that she had been too lenient this afternoon and should have broken one of her hands. Unable to vent her anger, she felt stifled in her chest, suffocating her. Song Enya was so angry that she sat up on the bed. She picked up the pillow beside her and ravaged it as if it were a certain hateful face. She pinched it viciously, but that was not enough to vent her anger. His phone suddenly rang. Annoyed, she looked at the caller ID and saw that it was Mu Yaja's name. She immediately picked up the phone happily. Song Enya picked up the call and pretended to sound sickly and weak. "Hello, Brother Mu? Enya, are you asleep?" Mu Yaja's deep and magnetic voice came from the other end. "No. My heart hurts, and I can't sleep." Song Enya pretended to be on the verge of tears as if she had suffered a great grievance. She looked as if she was about to burst into tears, but she was secretly delighted because of Mu Yaja's call. "Is your hand better?" His voice was faint, sounding as if he was concerned but not concerned. Song Enya could not tell if he was concerned about her, so she grumbled, "My hand was dislocated. It's been reattached, but it still hurts a lot. How is it painful?" "It's just a normal dislocation, it doesn't hurt at all." Still, she deliberately said that to make his heart ache. There was a sudden silence on the other end. The sudden silence made her anxious and uneasy. Song Enya said, "Brother Mu, do you know? That Yunshirshir is too much. She's simply." Chapter 980. Song Enya was stunned. She did not expect him to say such a thing. Ever since she was young, he had always been very indulgent toward her. Even when she did something wrong at times, he would not reprimand her. This was the first time he had been harsh with her. "Brother Mu, what do you mean?" She pouted and said in an unhappy tone, "What do you mean by I went overboard? You know very well in your heart, don't you?" He paused for a moment before his tone became heavier. "What happened today made me very angry. I don't want it to happen again. Still, since you're young and insensible, I won't hold it against you. After all, I'm not your parents, so I have no obligation or responsibility to teach you a lesson. However, you must apologize to her personally." He deliberately emphasized the word personally, in a tone that brooked no argument. Song Enya was stunned. When she came back to her senses, her heart was throbbing with pain. She cried out indignantly, "Why should I? Why should I apologize to her? I didn't do anything wrong." "Don't you know very well whether you did anything wrong?" His tone was unfriendly and did not give her any face. Instead, he said coldly, "Song Enya, remember this, I indulge you, but it's not unconditional. Remember that there are some people you can't touch. His words were a little harsh. Song Enya was stunned. She did not expect Yunshurshu to hold such an important place in his heart. This was the first time in her life that he had spoken so harshly to her. I won't hold it against you this time, but there won't be a next time. If I find out about it again. He did not continue speaking, giving her some leeway. With that, he hung up the phone. Song Enya's hand, which was holding the phone tightly, trembled violently. By the time she realized it, she had already smashed the phone to the ground. Why should she apologize? Why? Was he so protective of her? What did he mean by indulging her unconditionally? He was not like this in the past. Song Enya buried her face in her palms sadly. Hot tears dripped onto her hands as her whole body trembled. Naturally, she could not bring herself to apologize to Yunshurshu personally. How arrogant was she? In the Song family, she had always been spoiled to the point that she was out of control. It was impossible for a person like her to bow down and apologize to a person, especially a commoner with no status or background. Because of this, every time she called Muyaja, she would be ruthlessly hung up. It seemed that he would ignore her until she personally apologized to Yunshurshu. Song Enya was exasperated, but she refused to swallow her pride and apologize to Yunshurshu. The scenes for In Xiachuan and In Dongyu were completed. Yunshurshu received a notice and spent the next few days familiarizing herself with the score. Gu Xingzi wrote a song to be used as the theme song for the movie, The Green Apple. It was a warm and sweet love song sung by a man and a woman. After Yunshurshu familiarized herself with the score, she went to the recording studio to record a demo. Gu Xingzi was not very satisfied with the first few demos that she recorded. He changed the score a few more times and recorded it a few more times before he was finally satisfied. As it was a theme song, there was no need to specially film a music video. He cut out a few beautifully produced scenes from the movie and recorded a scene of the chorus in the recording studio. Then, he released it as a preview of the theme song online. Once the single was released, it quickly rose to the top of the charts. Chapter 981. The song was light, catchy, sweet, and warm. Soon, it became popular. Many fans of the original novel were looking forward to the release of the movie after seeing the plot of the music video. The movie was initially scheduled to be released at the end of the year during the primetime slot. As it was targeted at the student market, it would be released during the winter holidays. Lin Fengtian had high expectations for the box office. The initial optimistic prediction was that the box office would exceed 2 billion yuan. The schedule for the next few days was packed. The movie was about to be completed and was about to come to an end. Next, the post-production began anxiously. The crew was already preparing to promote the movie before it was released. It seemed that in order to cater to the plot of the movie and promote the movie, Huanyu Entertainment intended to package Gu Xingzi and Yunshurshu as a couple to hype up the movie. The so-called couple hype was the easiest way to make the headlines in the entertainment industry. It was a rather old-fashioned method. However, the public's desire for gossip was stronger. Hence, this method was tried and tested. Qin Zhou accepted several jobs for Yunshurshu. Among them, there was a reality show called The Love Diary. It was a rather important draft. The Love Diary was a reality show produced by Chengguang Satellite TV with Imaginary Love as its selling point. In the program, popular celebrities formed a group of imaginary lovers and went on an imaginary date program. After a few episodes, it quickly became a popular first-tier reality TV show. Gu Xingzi and Yunshurshu would be the second, imaginary lovers. Because it was Gu Xingzi, they were given the spotlight as a pair of lovers. Of course, the so-called reality show actually had a script. After all, they had to create some gimmicks and suspense. Otherwise, where would the topic and viewership ratings come from? The filming of the show was initially scheduled for next month. Before that, the script would be sent to Xianxia. When the time came, she would just have to follow the script and record. When Xianxia heard that Qin Zhou had accepted this show for her, she was a little speechless. Qin Zhou glanced at her. Why? You don't want to? Xianxia, you have to be more careful. Many female celebrities want to film The Love Diary with Gu Xingzi and ride on Gu Xingzi's popularity. Hee. Then I'm really lucky. Xianxia said and stuck out her tongue. It's good that you know. Qin Zhou knocked on her head and said, I've been busy these past few days. There's an event tonight. What announcement? Starlight Quietness Distance, perform well for me. Qin Zhou said as he took out a thin stack of scripts and handed it to her. This is the script. Take a look at it first. The script was filled with questions that the host would ask. She just had to memorize how to answer them. Starlight Quietness Distance was a well-known large-scale entertainment talk show. The lineup of hosts was also very luxurious. Among them, Lu Fei, who was the head of the lineup, was the top in the entertainment hosting field. He had a very deep foundation in hosting. Among the popular hosts, he had the highest cultural background and was very humorous. Under his leadership, the atmosphere of the program was humorous and relaxed. While making people laugh, he would often say a few thought-provoking words of wisdom. Most of the time, it was very relaxing to be on his show. There was no need to deliberately create jokes or gimmicks. Generally speaking, a show would invite 10 guests, split into two halves. Xianxia and Gu Xingzi were assigned to the first half. Chapter 982. This was a prime-time slot with the highest ratings. Along with Gu Xingzi and Xianxia were Lu Jingtian, Li Jiuxian, and Yangmi. Qin Zhou picked out a gown for Xianxia. It was especially suitable for her to wear a socialite gown as it made her look classy. As if on purpose, Qin Zhou also picked out an outfit for Gu Xingzi. It was the same color scheme as Xianxia's gown. When Xianxia rushed to the waiting room and saw Gu Xingzi's outfit, she blushed. This was clearly a couple's outfit, right? What a pair! Qin Zhou exclaimed in admiration. Xianxia frowned. Qin Zhou, if you do this, my Weibo will be flattened by his fans later. Silly. It's better if it's flattened. That means there's something to talk about. Celebrities are most afraid of not having anything to talk about. How could she protest? Not long after this hype was launched, her Weibo was already besieged by Gu Xingzi's army of fans. It would be a wonder if she would not be flattened once this show was broadcasted. Can't you just not watch it? Qin Zhou laughed. I'm afraid that someone will send me razor blades, Xianxia replied truthfully. Qin Zhou, in fact, she had already received several threatening letters. That was why she was still fearful. Before the recording of the show, one of the hosts, Lu Fei, specially met with Xianxia. This was the first time they met, and Lu Fei gave off a refined and courteous vibe. He also had a good impression of Xianxia. Unlike other newcomers, Xianxia was especially polite. It was the kind of courtesy and respect that came from the bottom of her heart. At first glance, he felt that this young lady was not bad. He had seen the trailer of the movie, but when he saw Xianxia in person, she seemed to be more classy than when she was in front of the camera. He had a simple conversation with Xianxia. After going through their lines, he said a few more words of concern and left. The program began recording and broadcasting. Because it was a live broadcast, there was no room for any mistakes. The director of the program specially went through the script with Xianxia before she went on stage and repeatedly warned her, this is a live broadcast. Try not to make any mistakes. In a live broadcast, any mistakes can't be edited out. The recording began. After Xianxia and Gu Xingzi went on stage, Lu Fei mainly focused on the topic of the green apple. Everything went smoothly. Then, the host and the guests were divided into two teams and played a small game to test the actors' tacit understanding. A guessing game. One person received the taika and was responsible for performing the words displayed on the question in the form of gestures, while the other person was responsible for guessing the answer. Within 60 seconds, Gu Xingzhe and Yun Shishir obtained the highest score in the competition. Lu Fei smiled and praised from the side, Xingzhe and Shishir have a great tacit understanding. They got 8 out of 10 questions right. I couldn't even guess a few questions, but Shishir guessed them right away. Their tacit understanding is enviable. The director gestured off stage and the audience immediately cheered to add to the atmosphere. Yun Shishir looked at Gu Xingzhe shyly and smiled shyly. She thought to herself, it's because I memorized the answers before going on stage. In the beginning, when she watched the program, she felt that most of the games in the program were quite interesting and there were often funny segments. In the end, they were all scripted. From the big questions to the management of every expression, there was a script. Chapter 983. Oh. A gossipy look appeared on Lu Fei's face. What about the kissing scene? Is it done in one take, too? Li Jiuxian immediately stepped forward to play along. They often NG their kissing scenes. The audience below the stage screamed and cheered again. Lu Fei pretended to be surprised and covered his mouth. His eyes darted around before he looked at Gu Xingzhe with a teasing look and asked with a smile, Xingzhe, you didn't do it on purpose, did you? Another host, Shao Kan, chimed in, if it were me, I'd definitely NG on purpose. Ha ha ha. Adultery, adultery. The hosts looked at each other. It was obvious that there was a hidden meaning in their words. The production team had already prepared the script beforehand and intended to use the scandal between Gu Xingzhe and Yun Shishir as a hype point for the show. Right at this moment, Lu Jingtian suddenly spoke from the side. Actually, in the kissing scenes between Xingzhe and Shishir, Xingzhe is in the right state most of the time, but Shishir has a lot of NGs. As soon as she said this, everyone was stunned. Gu Xingzhe frowned slightly, but when the camera turned to him, he quickly regained his smile and looked at Lu Jingtian with a hint of warning. Lu Jingtian's words were not part of the script. There was no such thing in the script. However, by saying this, she was deliberately trying to embarrass Yun Shishir. From the start, the production team intended to create a couple between Gu Xingzhe and Yun Shishir. The script was also for Gu Xingzhe to seduce Yun Shishir. Lu Jingtian's words implied that Yun Shishir had deliberately NG'd during the kissing scene and that she was deliberately trying to defame her. If this sentence was not connected well, one could imagine what kind of news the media would create the next day. Yun Shishir deliberately NG'd, shamelessly and shamelessly, was suspected of seducing Gu Xingzhe. In this way, Yun Shishir's status would be lowered. Generally speaking, when it came to creating hype for a couple, the female celebrities were usually more reserved. Lu Fei broke out in a cold sweat, but his quick reflexes allowed him to quickly answer her question. Shishir purposely made NGs during filming? Oh. You're really something. Everyone turned to look at Yun Shishir to see her reaction to this. Below the stage, Mushi was worried for her. Yun Shishir quickly reacted. She pursed her lips and said shyly, because filming with Xingzhe is too stressful. Pressure? Yes. It's because, he's too handsome. When he stands in front of me, it feels a little surreal. That's why I sometimes get distracted. Yun Shishir covered her mouth and looked a little nervous. Besides, Xingzhe is more handsome in real life than on TV. When he stands in front of me, he has a very special aura. I'm afraid that I won't be able to act well, but the more I think about it, the more pressure I feel. She tactfully took over the topic. Only then did Mushi heave a sigh of relief. Standing at the side, Qin Zhou's expression softened a little as his eyes revealed his approval. Lu Fei also said, The Green Apple is Shishir's debut film. In this movie, Shishir contributed her first on-screen kiss. I heard from director Lin that Xianxia is a very talented actress. This movie may just be a starting point. I'm also looking forward to Xianxia contributing more outstanding works to us in the future. Applause came from below the stage. Chapter 984. Lu Jingtian continued, I remember there's a scene that the director wasn't satisfied with despite repeated takes. Lu Fei then sternly said, the director is very strict about the film industry. He's especially strict when it comes to filming. I heard that he has a bad temper when he's working. Shao Kan added, the director has always had high standards for movies and strives for perfection. I think this attitude is very rare. The topic returned to the main topic. However, it was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but Lu Fei seemed to have neglected Lu Jingtian and downplayed her existence. He skipped the few topics in the script that revolved around Lu Jingtian. Lu Jingtian was especially indignant. She tried several times to bring the topic to her, but she failed. She was just like a clown trying her best to make her presence known. Lu Jingtian's manager was furious after the show ended, but given her status, he dared not voice out his anger. Lu Jingtian was also very annoyed. She had blurted out those words without much thought. While she hated herself for being unable to keep her cool, she also hated Xianxia for being so tactful in responding to her sharp provocation. Qin Zhou walked up to Xianxia and praised, Xianxia, you did well today. Isn't that all thanks to Mr. Qin's guidance? Xianxia complimented with a smile. Lass, you have a glib tongue. Despite his words, his ears were very pleased. After the show was broadcast, it naturally caused a sensation. However, the topic did not revolve around the accident in the show. Instead, the audience's discussion revolved around Lu Jingtian and Xianxia. On Weibo, the topic Lu Jingtian ostracizing Xianxia jumped to the top of the search list. The production team was also very dissatisfied with Lu Jingtian's behavior of not following the script. During the replay, they deliberately exposed her ugly side. Many fans were talking about how, on the show, Lu Jingtian would intentionally or unintentionally ostracize Xianxia and lead unfavorable topics to Xianxia. She seemed to be very scheming. This was different from the innocent image that Lu Jingtian portrayed in front of the camera. Lu Jingtian's sharp tongue was instantly exposed on this show. Xianxia's fans even went to Lu Jingtian's Weibo to criticize her for being scheming, and deliberately ostracizing the newcomer by making things difficult for Xianxia. Lu Jingtian's fans on Weibo dropped by tens of thousands overnight. She didn't have many fans to begin with, and they were all zombie fans. However, all of them were genuine fans. Lu Jingtian was livid. She originally wanted to embarrass Xianxia on the show, but she did not expect to suffer a double loss. In fact, she was so jealous because her team wanted to be a couple with Gu Xingzi. Gu Xingzi refused. However, when it came to Xianxia, she actually agreed. It would be strange if she wasn't angry. Why did Gu Xingzi give such good resources to Xianxia? If all of Xianxia's resources were given to her, she would definitely be more popular than Xianxia. How could Lu Jingtian not be furious? Of course, this was all in the future. On this day, Qin Zhou arranged to meet Xianxia at the company. When Xianxia arrived at the company, Qin Zhou had just finished a call. His expression was a little serious, but there was a hint of excitement and ambition in his eyes. Chapter 985. Xianxia raised her eyebrows, clearly surprised by his cautious attitude. What's the matter? Just ask. Qin Zhou pursed his lips, hesitating whether he should ask or not. He tapped his fingertips on the table a few times and said, maybe this question is a little presumptuous, but I still want to know more. Please don't take offense. He paused for a moment and went straight to the point. I want to know, what's your relationship with young Master Mu? Xianxia was stunned. Why do you ask? Because I feel that young Master Mu treats you differently, Qin Zhou said honestly as he fiddled with the thumb ring on his finger. He was indeed different. At least in Qin Zhou's impression, Wuxia was a heartless man. Why did he have such an impression? Back when Huanyu was acquired by Disheng, in order to curry favor with this rich and powerful boss and to obtain more golden resources for their artistes, many top managers had secretly sent him a list of artistes and organized it into a roster. It was a common thing to give away women in the vanity market. Whenever Wuxia personally picked someone, it meant that she would have more opportunities to rise up the ranks. However, it was said that after Wuxia saw the list, he threw it aside and no longer asked about it. He had never had a woman by his side. He was a typical example of walking through a field of flowers, but not a single leaf touched him. He was clearly in charge of a huge entertainment empire, but he had never had the slightest intimate relationship with any woman in the circle. Unspoken was the first and only one. He had also asked around about Unspoken's position in Wuxia's heart. However, no one in the company knew. They only knew that Unspoken seemed to be a little special. They could not explain why she was special. Unspoken pondered for a moment. She did not know why Qin Zhou asked that. However, since he asked, she answered honestly, lovers. Qin Zhou narrowed his eyes. I heard that you have a child. How did you know? Unspoken was slightly surprised. How am I going to survive if I can't even find out the background of the artists under me? Qin Zhou was a little dissatisfied with her belittling. He knocked on the table and asked, Is this child young Master Mu's? Unspoken gritted her teeth and said, Yes. I heard that a mysterious girl gave birth to a child for the Mu family 7 years ago. The youngest son of the Mu family, Muichen, is not the child of Mu Wanru and Wuxia. He is a surrogate. After Qin Zhou finished speaking, he paused for a moment and looked at her meaningfully. Unspoken looked a little embarrassed, but she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Everyone who was involved in the matter of surrogacy for the Mu family was very tight-lipped. How did he find out? Unspoken sighed and said, Actually, there were 2 children at that time. The older one was taken away when he was born, and the younger one was not breathing when he was born. Later, the child was saved after the emergency treatment. My father pulled some strings to hide it from the Mu family. Qin Zhou suddenly understood. In that case, you can rely on your children to rise in status and marry into a rich family. Rich and powerful families value inheritance. You have 2 children by your side. That's a great asset. Unspoken looked indifferent. I don't want to. You don't want to? Qin Zhou was a little surprised. Why not? Unspoken fell silent. Chapter 986. One had to know that in this industry, it was an abyss of suffering. If it were any other woman, she would definitely try her best to get into a rich family. After all, rich families valued a woman's innocence more. Unspoken narrowed her eyes slightly and took a deep breath. Qin Zhou's question was very straightforward and even a little prickly. Therefore, she couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. However, she understood that Qin Zhou didn't mean any harm by asking this question. He didn't mean to make things difficult for her, nor did he want to hurt her. He just wanted to know her relationship with Wuxia. He was her manager, so he had the obligation and responsibility to investigate her background thoroughly. She didn't want to hide anything from him. She looked up and looked straight at him with her clear eyes. She said calmly, I don't like the feeling of living under someone else's roof. When Qin Zhou received this answer that was both surprising and not too surprising, his face was a little stunned. However, these words were very much like her style. Unspoken said calmly, glory, splendor, wealth, fame, and benefits. Who doesn't chase after them like a flock of ducks? But if a person lives in this world and has to rely on a man to live, then how can they protect their dignity? I don't want to live like this. Qin Zhou smiled happily. He obviously appreciated her answer. Very good. I really like your strong personality. He suddenly leaned forward slightly, his eyes like torches. "Do you know my ambition?" he asked. He lowered his voice and his voice was as deep as a magnet. Unspoken shook her head. With a smile, he leaned back in his chair and said unhurriedly, "In these 10 years, I've conquered half of Gu Xing's empire. But I want to use my ambition on you. Are you willing to cooperate with me?" "Of course I am. Before this, I want you to be clear. I don't care if the entertainment industry is a tiger's den or a big dye vat. I want you to know that this is an industry where the strong prey on the weak. The weak have no dignity. Since you've stepped into this industry, I want you to do your best and not be a dabbler. I don't like the attitude of a dabbler." After Qin Zhou finished speaking, he took out a script from the side and handed it to her. Unspoken raised her eyebrows and took the book. She saw that it was a very thick script. It was very thick, at least twice as thick as the script of the green apple. Flipping to the first page, there were black words on a white background. This drama was a palace drama that had recently been preparing for casting. The title was tentatively set as Lethal Beauty. It was also adapted from a best-selling masterpiece and was a popular IP. His novels alone had sold 3 million copies and were sold overseas. 3 million copies. What did that mean? If a physical book could sell more than 30,000 copies, it would be able to enter the best-selling list. 5 years after the novel was released, it sold 3 million copies, which proved that the novel had a considerable fan base. It was said that the copyright alone was sold for a sky-high price of 10 million. This was unprecedented and had set a new record for IP copyright fees. What was even more shocking was that they had only bought the copyright of the novel and had not even confirmed the actors. Yet, all the major TV channels and networks were scrambling for the broadcasting rights. A certain satellite TV channel had even offered 800 million in copyright fees. There's good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? Qin Zhou seemed to be in a good mood and deliberately kept her in suspense. Unspoken was also happy to support him. "Then I'll listen to the good news first. The good news is that you have a chance to compete for the female lead." Chapter 987. The bad news is that there are a lot of people competing with you for the female lead role, and most of them are A-listers. Moreover, in comparison, your chances of being elected are slim, Qin Zhou said truthfully. Slim? Unspoken was stunned. She didn't understand how slim her chances were. Very slim. Why do you say that? Because Han Yuyan and Lin Ji are on the shortlist for the female lead. Unspoken was shocked. She finally realized how slim her chances were. There was no need to elaborate on how high Han Yuyan's status was in the industry. Lin Ji, on the other hand, was the hottest costume actress in the past 2 years. She was second to none. Speaking of Lin Ji, she had been in the industry for more than 3 years. Since her first movie, Rose Night, she shot to fame. With the Best Actress award, her status skyrocketed overnight. After that, she acted in many costume dramas and was known as the top costume beauty in the entertainment industry. Her facial features were soft and beautiful. She was elegant and had a unique aura. She was very suitable for the costume. When the new version of The Return of the Condor Heroes aired last year, her role as Xiao Longnu in the drama made her famous. She became an A-lister. However, these advantages were nothing to be afraid of. Qin Zhou had confidence in Unspoken. Her looks were also very sculpted. She might not be worse than Lin Ji in costume. It could even be said that she was better than Lin Ji. He was more worried about Lin Ji and Han Yuyan's background. Han Yuyan was Huan Yu's A-lister. Her status was there. Moreover, she had been in the industry for many years. Her fan base was very deep. In order to compete for the female lead role in Lethal Beauty, she even planned to postpone her wedding. Lin Ji was an artist under Chengguang Entertainment. Although she had only been in the industry for a few years and didn't have a strong foundation, she had a strong background. However, Han Yuyan's background was more powerful than Lin Ji's. The problem was that the copyright of Lethal Beauty was bought by Chengguang Entertainment first. Since Chengguang Entertainment had spent a lot of money to buy the copyright, they naturally wanted to promote their artists. Chengguang's veteran artiste was Meng Lan. However, ever since Meng Lan married into a rich family, she had been in a semi-retired state. Very quickly, she fell from the top artiste altar. Therefore, Chengguang was determined to make Lin Ji the second Han Yuyan. Just from the amount of resources Chengguang had spent on Lin Ji in the past 2 years, one could see it. She was trying to make Lin Ji the new big sister of Orange Light. Since Chengguang Entertainment had bought the rights to the drama, Qin Zhou guessed that they had already decided on the female lead. It was very likely that Lin Ji would play the role. The current film and television industry was different from the past. In the past, the choice of actors was mostly in the hands of the director. But now, in most cases, the investors had the final say in the selection of actors and actresses, and the director had no right to interfere. Unless it was a director with funding or a very famous gold medal director, such as Lin Fengtian. Not every director was so lucky to have the right to choose the male and female lead in their hearts. More often than not, the investors would arrange for people to join the cast. Even if there were no characters, they would create a character and insert it into the cast. Chapter 988. The director of Lethal Beauty was Gu Xiaoyang, an experienced director in the film industry. During the preparation stage, other than the few connections the investors had placed in the team, he had sent a group of messages to the few female leads he had in mind. Alas, Unspoken was not among the 5 names listed. As a newcomer, her movie had not yet been released, so Gu Xiaoyang did not have a deep impression of her. He only knew that this newcomer had good potential, but she was not special enough for him to personally invite her. Among the 5, Lin Ji was one, and Han Yuyan was the other. Out of the 5 female stars, 4 of them were under Huanyu. As an entertainment empire, Huanyu had many big names under its banner, and the flowers were flourishing and blooming. 3 of the 4 top female stars in the film industry were from Huanyu, which showed Huanyu's influence. Inviting Huanyu's artists to be the female lead candidate was tacitly approved by Chengguang Entertainment as the investor. On the surface, it seemed very selfless, but when Ji Lin heard the news, he was furious. Was this a blatant attempt to win fans? First, they used Huanyu's artists to hype up the show. Then, when it came to the final selection, they would choose their own artists. Not only did they hype up the show, but they could also use Huanyu's A-list female stars to hype up their artists. Wasn't this killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Chengguang's method was quite scheming. But so what if they knew it was a blatant attempt to win fans? A show was a good one. Even if the chances were slim, they had to seize every opportunity. When Qin Zhou found out that the show was about to be filmed, he immediately asked Gu Xiaoyang to meet him. He threw him an olive branch and went straight to the point, recommending Unspoken. Qin Zhou had a lot of connections in the industry and had a good relationship with Gu Xiaoyang. Because he had spoken, Gu Xiaoyang gave Unspoken the opportunity to audition. Even if it was just an audition, the chances were slim, but it was still not easy to come by. As for whether she could be chosen, Qin Zhou did not have much confidence. He even guessed that the show was tailor-made to promote Lin Ji. After listening to his detailed analysis, Unspoken was a little disappointed. I think it's more than slim. It's impossible. Lin Ji is an artist from Chengguang. How could Chengguang choose an artist from Huanyu as the female lead? That's a big blow to your morale. Qin Zhou smiled playfully and cast a sidelong glance at her. Sure, pick up your fighting spirit. The chances are slim, but it's not hopeless. I'm a bit curious. What are you curious about? Unspoken asked, since this drama is a popular IP, why didn't Huanyu buy the adaptation rights of this novel? Xianxia, some things are not as simple as you think. The benefits involved were very deep. Moreover, one of the reasons why Huanyu didn't get the rights to this drama was because Huanyu's recent focus was on the movie IP. Most of the funds were invested in the movie script. Recently, Huanyu bought a tomb raiding IP and is about to start filming. Originally, I wanted to arrange for you to join the cast, but after weighing the pros and cons, I decided to let you audition for Lethal Beauty. Qin Zhou also carefully read the tomb raiding script. This drama was based on the famous tomb raiding novel, Strange Tomb. The theme of tomb raiding was very popular. Chapter 989. Lethal Beauty, on the other hand, was different. The script for Lethal Beauty was more or less completed. It had been changed into a 90-episode-long series. The schedule had also been finalized. It would be aired during the summer prime time. Lethal Beauty's influence was far greater than Creepy Tomb's. Its popularity was definitely not something that Creepy Tomb could compare to. Plus, it had a long exposure time and a wide audience. It was a good opportunity to build popularity with the audience. After Qin Zhou finished his analysis, Xianxia was already dumbfounded. She suddenly understood why Qin Zhou was called the #1 golden agent. He deserved it. Just the way he picked the script showed that he had a keen eye for it. Even if it's a waste of effort, we can't miss any opportunity. What if your audition results amaze Gu Xiaoyang? Who knows, he might choose you. You have to know that Gu Xiaoyang is a famous director with 2 high ratings. He has a lot of power. Okay, I'll try. Xianxia took the script from him. Actually. Qin Zhou suddenly frowned. He wanted to say something but stopped. Actually what? Nothing. Qin Zhou shook his head and smiled faintly. He did not say anything. He originally wanted to say, actually, it's just a female lead. If we can get Mu Yaja to help us, it won't be a problem. But with Xianxia's personality, she might not be willing. She was strong-willed. She must want to get the role with her own abilities. Xianxia smiled. Qin Zhou, don't worry. I'll do my best. I won't let your efforts go to waste. Qin Zhou smiled. When she got home, she began to study the script carefully. She finished reading it overnight. It was a rare and good script. In fact, palace dramas had always been a popular theme for TV dramas. In the past 10 years, 5 of the top 10 palace dramas had made it to the top of the top 10. Palace dramas had a very large audience. If the reputation and ratings were good, as the female lead, she would definitely win the hearts of the audience. The main storyline of the script mainly told the story of Qin Changle, the daughter of a concubine in the prime minister's residence, assisting the prince to ascend to the throne. She was given the title of empress, but in the end, she was betrayed and ended up in the cold palace. She suffered humiliation and died with hatred. After death, she was reborn 20 years ago. She took revenge domineeringly and finally reaped happiness. The characters were distinct, and the plot was intertwined. The theme was political intrigue and palace strife, which was fascinating. Xianxia was certain that if this drama was well made, it would definitely become a new milestone in palace drama. It was a good script. Xianxia sighed again in her heart. She couldn't hide her excitement. She didn't have much hope for the audition, but after reading the script, her fighting spirit was reignited. Taking advantage of the short break after the completion of the filming of The Green Apple, she studied the script 3 times and carefully highlighted the key points. Soon, Xianxia received the script for the audition. The script for the audition was that 15 years after Qin Changle was banished to the Cold Palace, she was faced with the emperor's imperial edict to kill herself. She was heartbroken and resentful. Using this as the script for the audition was a great test of the actor's tension and knowledge of the lines. The day before the audition, Xianxia was extremely nervous. She tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. She felt very regretful when she thought that this script might already have a female lead. She really wanted to get the chance to play the female lead. However, when she thought of the frightening fan bases of Lin Jiyu and Han Yuyan, she thought that the competition was too great. Chapter 990. On the day of the audition, Yun Shishir woke up early and rushed to the audition venue after she was done with her preparations. She was in the second group and was in the same batch as Lin Ji. However, the latter was the first and she was the last. As for Han Yuyan, she was in the first group. When she arrived at the venue, she went to find out about the first group's audition. The result was that Han Yuyan had been kicked out. Han Yuyan was kicked out? Yun Shishir had seen the name list. Did she not hear that Han Yuyan's performance was commendable and that the director was satisfied with it? Yes. The director said that he was satisfied, but it was just a superficial compliment. If he directly said that she was kicked out, wouldn't it be embarrassing for her? The director definitely didn't want to offend her. Even if she was kicked out, he had to make it look good. Of course, this is insider news that I heard, so it can't be fake. Yun Shishir trusted her assistant's efficiency, but it was indeed a little surprising that Han Yuyan was eliminated in the first round. Why was she eliminated? Her assistant answered, she looks old. After all, her age is obvious. Moreover, in order to enter Hollywood, Han Yuyan's stylist intended to make her look like a top actress. Hence, the director felt that she was too old and didn't have the feeling he wanted. Yun Shishir pouted. Chungguang Entertainment is really scheming. On Weibo, when the production team released the news of Han Yuyan's participation in the female lead audition, it blew up instantly. Han Yuyan's fan base was not to be underestimated. The support for Han Yuyan to be the female lead was very strong. The production team clearly wanted to trample on Han Yuyan and boost Lin Ji. Han Yuyan must be very depressed, but she had no choice. This was indeed a good script. If there was a chance, she would definitely not let it go. She brought Yun Shishir to the dressing room. On the way, they brushed past a woman in a luxurious dress. Yun Shishir glanced back but did not pay much attention to her. Hence, she followed her assistant to the dressing room. Someone called out to her from behind. Stop right there. Yun Shishir stopped in her tracks suspiciously. She slowly turned around and looked at the woman in front of her, who was dressed in a gorgeous phoenix coronet. It was a little unfamiliar, but he had some impression of it. She rarely paid attention to dramas and movies, so she was the first to recognize her. She whispered into her ear, Shishir, it's Lin Ji, Lin Ji. She was visibly agitated. It was no wonder that Lin Ji was her goddess. At such a young age, she relied on her beautiful looks and superb acting skills to defend her place in the entertainment industry. Yun Shishir looked at her, only to see that the woman in front of her was also sizing her up with a cold gaze. You are. Lin Ji paused for a moment. Yun Shishir? She remembered her. He was a new topic on Weibo. She seemed to be the target of Huanyu's recent efforts. Yun Shishir had just debuted, and Huanyu had already poured resources into her. Most of them were gold resources. Yun Shishir nodded politely. Hello. Compared to her, Yun Shishir's attitude seemed a little more arrogant. Are you here for the audition too? She keenly sensed the hostility in her eyes and suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. She had seen the interviews, and the media was full of praises for her character. They said that she was gentle and pleasant, but now, her good impression of her had been shattered. Yun Shishir lightly replied, MHM. Chapter 991. In other words, she seemed to be implying that Yun Shishir was shamelessly trying to compete with her for the female lead role. She was clearly trying to embarrass Yun Shishir. Lin Ji was obviously hostile towards her. She did not know at first that Yun Shishir would be participating in this audition. Despite the fact that the female lead had already been internally selected for this audition, Lin Ji was still displeased with the actress. Why? It was because they had both debuted not long ago, were both highly supported by the company, and had the same style. Huan Yu had used Yun Shishir's popularity to hype her up since her debut. Of course, Yun Shishir was unaware of this. The actress was aware of it, though, and she was still brooding over it. No one was willing to let their popularity be used by their competitor. She broke out in a cold sweat, only to hear Yun Shishir calmly say, This show is very popular, so I'll join in the fun. Her relaxed and teasing tone easily dispelled the awkward atmosphere. Lin Ji was stunned, and her gaze on Yun Shishir deepened. Her assistant urged her from the side. It was almost her turn for the audition. Lin Ji snorted, then turned around and left. Mu Shi's lips twitched. I've decided not to be a fan anymore. Huh? She fumed. That actress is so arrogant. She even deliberately made things difficult for you. I'm so angry. Alright, don't be angry. Shishir, you must work hard and get the female lead role. Let's see if she still dares to look down on you. Yun Shishir, however, was honest. I don't think I have a chance. Huh? Mu Shi was stunned. Are you that unconfident? I was still hopeful that the audition would be a success, but judging from her tone earlier, it seems that she's really the female lead, Yun Shishir said. Then, are we still participating in the audition? Of course. Why not? Qin Zhou fought for this role for me, so how can I let him down? Even if I can't get the female lead role, I can at least make myself known. Yun Shishir said optimistically. Get acquainted. Pfft, Mu Shi was tickled by her optimistic side. When she entered the dressing room, the stylist's attitude became much colder when he heard that she was an artist from Huan Yu. He casually threw her a set of white clothes and left. Yun Shishir opened the plain white dress. She thought about the luxurious dress Lin Ji was wearing. Indeed, it couldn't be compared. Mu Shi said gloomily, that's too much. Lin Ji's clothes are so pretty, but why do you look like morning clothes? Yun Shishir raised a brow and suddenly smiled. Mu Shi, help me with my makeup. My makeup skills aren't that good. You don't have to put on too much makeup. Just put on a thicker layer of powder, make your face look more haggard, make your eyes bigger, make your eyelashes longer, and make your lips a little more chapped. That's easy. With that, she got to work. Not long after, the makeup was done. Yun Shishir looked at the mirror, and a haggard yet beautiful face came into view. Since the audition script was a cold palace drama, the makeup could not be too gorgeous and should look more haggard. She was the last in the second group. Yang Mi suddenly walked in and was surprised to see Yun Shishir there. She was even more surprised to see her in a white shirt and haggard makeup. Shishir, are you here for the audition, too? Yun Shishir smiled when she saw her. Yes. Chapter 992. Yun Shishir explained, the audition script is a scene in the Cold Palace, so, Cold Palace? She raised a brow suspiciously. Shishir, did you get the wrong script? What? The audition isn't a scene in the Cold Palace, you must have gotten it wrong. She told her the truth. Yun Shishir, however, was stunned. Wrong? How could it be wrong? This script was given to her by Qin Zhou. Alarmed, Mu Shi quickly called the manager to verify the situation. He, however, said, the script is from Chengguang Entertainment. Why? Is it wrong? Mu Shi replied, I just asked around. The first group's audition seems to be for the female lead's conferment. It seems that someone cheated. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, Chengguang Entertainment purposely gave me a wrong script. What should we do, then? Mu Shi was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Yun Shishir, prepare for the second group's audition. Someone knocked on the door to inform Yun Shishir to prepare for the audition. The scene was in a deadlock for a moment. Mu Shi was even more anxious now. At this critical moment, the script was wrong. What should she do? Why don't we don't audition? She suggested. Yunshurshu exchanged glances with Yang Mi, pursing her lips. She calmly said, let's try. Huh? Yang Mi naturally understood what Yunshurshu meant and said, since you're here, regardless of whether the script is right or wrong, if you leave like this, the production team will definitely think that Shurshu is throwing her weight around and disrespecting the production team. If this matter gets out, Shurshu's reputation will be tarnished. When Yunshurshu reached the audition hall and walked in, the director's team, who were seated at the table, was stunned and frowned one after another. The audition script was for the conferment scene, so why was she dressed so plainly? Her makeup was also so haggard. Gu Xiaoyang looked at the name list. Yunshurshu, it turned out that she was the newbie recommended by Qin Zhou. Her looks and aptitude were not bad, but, Gu Xiaoyang said coldly, Yunshurshu, didn't you read the script? Which part is this? You didn't even read the script? He had no professionalism at all. Let's go, you're out. The producer patted the table. Yunshurshu bit her lip and said in a deep voice, I've read the script. When the producer heard this, he questioned, then why are you dressed like this? Yunshurshu couldn't possibly say that someone was behind this, could she? This producer looked very crafty and would definitely think that she was shirking her responsibility. Alright, I see that you didn't prepare seriously at all. You don't value this audition at all. You're out. The producer spoke, as if he didn't intend to leave her any leeway. Yunshurshu bit her lips and frowned slightly. Although she was unwilling, she couldn't say anything. Just as he was about to leave, Gu Xiaoyang suddenly spoke. Hold on. Yunshurshu paused and decided to give him some leeway. Gu Xiaoyang flipped through the script and asked, which part are you preparing for? Yunshurshu replied, the part where I was sentenced to death in the cold palace. Alright, you can start then. The producer beside them was anxious. Director Gu? You. This person obviously doesn't value this audition, why are you? At least let her finish her performance. Gu Xiaoyang looked a little impatient. Are you the director or am I the director? The producer kept quiet. Gu Xiaoyang could tell that Yunshurshu had read the script and had read it very carefully. Chapter 993. Her snow-white outfit and haggard face were very suitable for the scene. Moreover, she was recommended by Qin Zhou. At the very least, he had to let her finish her performance for his sake. Yunshurshu thanked him gratefully. Thank you, director, for giving me this chance. Gu Xiaoyang folded his arms and casually said, start your performance. You have 3 minutes. Yunshurshu adjusted her emotions and quickly got into character. 10 years. 10 whole years. It's me. I've been by your side, risking my life with you, assisting you wholeheartedly. Finally, you ascended to the throne and obtained this vast empire, but what did I get? What did I get? I gave my all for you without any complaints or regrets, but in return, I was imprisoned for 10 years. Now, you actually want to kill me? Nailan Yi, you're so heartless. Yunshurshu's eyes were ashen, but deep within them, there was a sinister hatred. The dramatic expression on her face was full of tension. Gu Xiaoyang crossed his arms in front of his chest and watched in silence. His expression was profound, and no one could tell if he was happy, angry, or sad. When Yunshurshu left the audition hall, Mu Shi, who had been waiting outside, immediately went up to her. How was it? Did you pass? Yunshurshu looked at her calmly. No. You're eliminated directly? This result was too surprising. She was 100% confident in Shurshu's acting skills. Mu Shi widened her eyes in shock. How did you get eliminated directly? Even if there was a mistake in the audition script, with your acting skills, it's impossible for you to be eliminated in the first round. Did the director say anything? The director didn't say anything, Xianxia replied. It was the producer who announced the result directly. Sigh. I should have known that the producer and investor are in cahoots. It's clear that Chengguang has already decided on Lin Ji as the female lead. Mu Shi scratched her head gloomily. Xianxia said, so, it's not surprising that I'm eliminated. After removing her makeup, Xianxia and her assistant left. In the car, Xianxia received a call from Qin Zhou. Xia, I heard from Director Gu that you were eliminated. Yes. Xianxia's expression was very calm. After all, she had expected this, and it was not unexpected. Don't be sad, Director Gu just called and praised you. He said that your acting skills are very good, but, he revealed that this audition is just a gimmick, and that they have already decided on the female lead. Xianxia said, it's Lin Ji, right? You know? Yes. Therefore, I am not surprised by this result. Qin Zhou continued, Director Gu said that if you're willing, he can use his authority to cast you as the second female lead. What do you think? Will you consider it? Second female lead? In the script, the second female lead was the female lead's elder sister, Qin Xianhui. She was the #1 beauty in Western Liang and the daughter of the Prime Minister. She had a vicious heart and was extremely shrewd. On the surface, she looked gentle and generous, but in reality, she was an extremely vicious woman. In her past life, she was the mastermind behind Qin Chang'el's death. After Qin Chang'el's rebirth, Qin Xianhui continued to plot against her. In the end, she suffered the consequences of her own actions. It was a role that tested one's acting skills but did not please the audience. Still, it was a very important role. Qin Xianhui's role was entirely to support Qin Chang'el's character. Xianxia frowned but did not say anything. Chapter 994. What is it? Qin Zhou calmly read a name over the phone. Mu Yaja. Xianxia could not help but clench her fists. She really liked the script of Lethal Beauty. However, the entertainment industry was like this. It was not about ability. More importantly, it was about background, means, and backing. This role should be a piece of cake for Mu Yaja, right? However, Xianxia could not help but feel hesitant. She did not really want to use Mu Yaja to get this role. The headquarters of Disheng Financial Group was located in the most luxurious area of Beijing's economic and trade center. The 99-story commercial building gave people a sense of majesty. Standing on the top floor of such a majestic building, one would feel as if they were looking down on the world. Of course, she did not know how terrifying Mu Yaja's net worth was. It was said that the entire Mu Group was equivalent to the country's commercial lifeline and the most important financial core in Asia. If the Mu Group made any moves, the entire financial world would be shaken. The Mu Group monopolized the country and was extremely powerful. Both the legal and illegal sides of the world occupied the vast territory. Mu Yaja held the power of life and death in the Mu Group. In the future, he would definitely become the owner of this highly anticipated business empire. In the luxurious office, Mu Yaja held the phone and leaned elegantly against the back of the chair. One of his hands was tapping on the table absent-mindedly. His long and narrow eyes were half closed. A deep and powerful voice came from the other end of the phone. It sounded a little angry. Yesterday, old Master Song called me and said that as an elder, you did not know what you were doing. He actually made his granddaughter suffer because of an actress of unknown origin. I don't care who that woman is. The Song family is the most important chess piece in your journey to becoming the head of the family. If you have the Song family's help, your position as the head of the Mu family will be even more secure. Mu Yaja's eyes were tinged with a trace of coldness, but his mellow voice was as cold as ice. Second uncle, don't interfere in this matter. I know what I'm doing. On the other end of the phone, the man's voice suddenly became gloomy. It's not that second uncle didn't tell you, but now that the Mu family is in trouble, you can't take any risks. You know, you're just the heir now, you haven't grasped the real power of the Mu Jia. I've always thought that you're smart and would never make a mistake. But don't you think you've handled this matter inappropriately? Of course, the Song family's old man may be exaggerating, but given Song Enya's status, I don't believe that he would be bewitched by a woman and offend the Song family. Mu Yaja lifted his sexy lips, his voice cold and full of sarcasm. Since when did I, Mu Yaja, need to rely on the Song family to strengthen my position? Since I can sit in this position, I can continue to sit in it steadily. The man suddenly fell silent and did not make a sound. Mu Yaja chuckled. Second uncle, your and grandpa's era is over. It's my era now. The man sighed and said indignantly, it's up to you. Don't disappoint second uncle, though, second uncle still believes in your ability. Handle this matter well. I know what I'm doing. Chapter 995. Even the faint breathing and whispering outside the door could be easily heard. He raised his eyes and looked at the door, saying coldly, come in. As his voice fell, the person outside the door seemed to hesitate for a long time. After hesitating for a long time, he pushed the door open. Yunshishir strode in. The moment she stepped into the office, she could feel the strange heavy atmosphere. This office was shockingly huge. It was more than 100 square meters. The decoration was simple yet luxurious, but standing in it, one could easily feel an invisible pressure. Even their breathing could not help but be suppressed. Yunshishir looked at the man sitting at the desk. At this moment, he was elegantly supporting his chin with one hand as he stared straight at her. His eyes were no longer as gentle as they were in the morning. They were so deep and dark that one would not dare to look directly at them. His expression was as cold as ice. His icy gaze swept past Yunshishir and Mu Shi, who were standing at the door. A strong aura swept over them. Mu Shi was intimidated by his gaze and broke out in a cold sweat. The emperor-like aura emanating from him made her feel timid. She could not help but hide behind Yunshishir. Chairman Mu. Mu Shi had just opened her mouth when she saw his pair of eyes as dark and gloomy as a black fog. They were very deep, very dark, and cold. She could not help but lower her head in shock, not daring to speak. Get out. I don't like to be disturbed when I'm working. Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and knocked on the table. His cold gaze fell on Mu Shi. His tone was very calm, but it revealed a majestic aura that made one unable to look directly at him. Just a few words made Mu Shi break out in a cold sweat. Yunshishir said to her, you can leave now. Mu Shi left the office. Mu Yaja's expression eased a little. Why are you here? Mu Yaja swept a glance at Yunshishir. However, at this moment, he was clearly not in a good mood as his face was gloomy. He did not like to be disturbed when he was working. This was especially true when he had an argument with his second uncle earlier. He was in a very bad mood. Am I disturbing you? Seeing this, Yunshishir saw that the man was constantly emitting a low pressure. She probed, then, should I go out too? Mu Yaja suddenly raised his arrogant chin, and the corners of his lips curled up. What are you doing here? Different. The man in front of her was completely different from the Mu Yaja she knew. Sometimes, this man's aura was really domineering. At this moment, Mu Yaja was like a high and mighty emperor. Just one look from him was enough to make people feel fear. Mu Yaja looked at her deeply and suddenly said in a deep voice, come here. Yunshishir didn't dare to move. She had never seen such a cold and unfeeling side of this man. His expressionless face always made people feel that he was overly cold. Seeing that she still didn't move, Mu Yaja said, come here. Yunshishir was startled by this indifferent tone. She stood there in a daze, feeling a little helpless. She didn't dare to go over, afraid that he would swallow her whole. She hesitated for a moment and then slowly walked to his side. The chair was turned around, and he pulled her into his embrace. She cried out in surprise as her waist was firmly held by him, and her whole body was locked in his embrace. Chapter 996. The man bent down and bit her earlobe. His long fingers pinched her chin, forcing her to look up at him. Mu Yaja's voice was low and charming. "What's with that look? It's as if I'm going to eat you alive. Because, you don't seem to be in a good mood." Mu Yaja closed his eyes slightly, and a trace of fatigue appeared on his face. "I'm a little tired." He had 3 video conferences in the morning, followed by a series of tedious affairs. It was inevitable that he felt a little frustrated. Unspoken reached out and rubbed his temples. The moderate amount of strength was just enough to relieve his faintly tense nerves. "Are you feeling better?" she asked when she saw him frowning. "I'm feeling better." Mu Yaja opened his eyes, grabbed her chin, and kissed the corner of her lips. "Are you looking for me for something?" Unspoken nodded. Suddenly, she shook her head. Mu Yaja laughed. He did not know what she wanted to say. "Is there anything?" Unspoken did not mention that matter to him in the end. She wanted to get rid of him and get the role in Lethal Beauty for her. However, after thinking for a while, she did not say anything. She curled her lips and smiled. "It's nothing." "Why?" "I want to see you." "Can't I?" "Did I disturb you? Are you unhappy?" Mu Yaja scratched the bridge of her nose. "You can come whenever you want." After that, he bent down and kissed her lips. It was just a small bite. The tip of his tongue ran over her lips wantonly. It was a charming kiss. She pushed him away. "When do you get off work?" 5:00. "Okay. I'll wait for you." After that, she went back to the sofa obediently. She picked up a magazine and flipped through it. She planned to wait for him to get off work and go home together. Minyu suddenly knocked on the door and walked in. He saw Unspoken sitting on the sofa. She smiled and nodded. Then, she came to him and said slowly, "Boss, CEO Wang of Huafeng Appliances invited you for dinner tonight." "I'm not going." "But, this dinner is very important. You've already rejected him 3 times. If you reject him again, I'm afraid you won't be giving him face. This isn't good, right?" Mu Yaja frowned. CEO Wang of Huafeng Electric Appliances had invited him 3 times, but he had turned him down one by one. Because, someone was waiting for him at home. Therefore, he turned down all the dinners that night. Unspoken looked up. "Mu Yaja, go ahead." He raised his eyebrows. "Can I go with you?" Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. "You're willing to accompany me?" "Yes." On the way to the dinner. Unspoken sat in the front passenger seat and said nervously, "This seems to be my first time attending a dinner party. I'm a little nervous." "Mu Yaja, this stupid woman. It's just a dinner party. What's there to be nervous about?" Unspoken turned her head and asked, "What do you think I should do if I get forced to drink?" Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows and rubbed her head lazily. He smiled and said, "I'd like to see who dares to force you to drink." Unspoken was stunned. The so-called dinner party was a social gathering at the table. It was a clash of interests. As the CEO of Mu Group, this kind of thing was commonplace. In China, there was such an unspoken social circle. A group of people would sit at the table and talk about business and interests over wine. Chapter 997. This time, it was nothing more than the boss of a financial group who had made a wrong decision a few days ago and caused quite a bit of trouble. Hence, he quickly gathered a group of friends and booked a private room at a 5-star hotel, hoping that Mu Yaja would lend a helping hand. At the table, Xianxia finally understood the meaning behind Mu Yaja's words. It was different from what she had imagined. Indeed, no one dared to force her to drink. After Mu Yaja introduced her, the group of men in suits looked at her in awe. Even if she was drinking fruit juice, those men still toasted her by the glass and downed it in one gulp without any hesitation. Their actions were so nimble that it was like moving clouds and flowing water. Their gazes towards her were also filled with fear and trepidation. Alright, was she that scary? Or rather, was the big boss sitting beside her that scary? How would those people dare to force Xianxia to drink? They couldn't wait to compliment her. They had a favor to ask of Mu Yaja, so if they were careless and made him unhappy, their company would be completely destroyed with just one word from him. Even if they were all sprawled on the table and carried back, they wouldn't be able to force Xianxia to drink. After the dinner, someone enthusiastically suggested that Mu Yaja and Xianxia be invited to the most luxurious KTV in Beijing, Las Vegas, for a karaoke session. Xianxia's heart skipped a beat. Las Vegas? It was said that it was the most expensive entertainment club in Beijing. The smallest private room inside had 2 floors and was especially luxurious. Out of curiosity, she wanted to go and see what the most luxurious entertainment club in Beijing was like. Hence, she gave Mu Yaja a very cute, expectant, and yearning look. Her sparkling eyes were like a little puppy trying to please him. Mu Yaja's eyes twitched fiercely. The thought of going to the KTV to listen to those old men wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves, those strange lights, those deafening sound effects, and those fawning faces gave him a terrible headache. However, she seemed to want to go. Mu Yaja said, "It can't be too late." Everyone cheered, but when they saw the boss's icy gaze, they immediately shut their mouths. Mu Yaja and Xianxia were escorted to Las Vegas by a group of people, as if they were the stars surrounding the moon. Upon hearing that the CEO of Disheng Financial Group was coming, the manager of Las Vegas booked the biggest KTV room for them. Xianxia held Mu Yaja's hand in amazement. She looked left and right, feeling that everything was new to her. After all, she rarely came out to play. When she was in university, it was popular for her classmates to gather and sing together, but she didn't have much time to go out and play. Mu Yaja glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. He saw that the corners of her lips were slightly raised. Even Mu Yaja, who was in a bad mood, couldn't help but be affected by her cheerful mood. Even the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Since this woman liked it, he would let her do it this time. The waiter respectfully led them into the KTV room. The moment they stepped in, Xianxia let go of Mu Yaja's hand. Mu Yaja couldn't help feeling a little stunned. Looking down at his suddenly empty hand, he suddenly felt a little disappointed.